Hello everybody, my name is Dave Jackson, and welcome to another Tales from the Backlog Deep Dive, where each week I'm joined by a guest to bring a game out of the backlog, play it, and discuss. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Wanderstop, which is a narrative farming management game developed by Davey Wreden and published by Annapurna Interactive for PC, Xbox, and PS5 in 2025. And real quick before I get into it, thank you very much to Davey Wreden for sending me a review code for this game. It is much appreciated. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. And here's a few quick things. If you like the show, please consider supporting on Patreon, leaving a rating and review, a like and comment on YouTube, etc. All of those things are very helpful. And here's the spoiler policy for the podcast. So we're not going to spoil the story of Wanderstop for a while. We're going to kind of set up the story. We'll talk about everything that we can with no spoilers, and then we'll warn you when spoilers are coming. There is a timestamp down in the show notes for when spoilers begin. But until we start telling you about it, you're safe. You can stick around. You can listen. You can watch. You're all good. But as always, I am not here alone to talk about Wanderstop. I have two wonderful returning friends of the show with me here today, returning guests and the friendliest baristas in the land. First of all, we have a streamer, host of the Playlog podcast and YouTube creator, CGDannyB. Danny, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Can we pick a game that doesn't make me cry, though? You have me Spatially right. Unbound and Wanderstop? Can we do something happier next time?
we do. We're going to start to typecast you, Danny, for the the super emotional, really resonant games on the show. Hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, it's fine. We're going to pick one that doesn't, and I'm going to make it a problem. I'm going to make myself cry over something
next time
super happy.
Yeah, next time we'll talk about Devil May Cry or something goofy, and it'll somehow make you cry.
Good deal. I'm here for it.
Yeah, so it's good to have you back. And we're also joined by one of the hosts of Fun and Games and Reignite podcasts, Matt Storm, a.k.a. Stormageddon. Matt, welcome back.
Hey, glad to be back. I mean, the last game I was on was also one where we cried through the ending. So I feel like it is becoming a pattern for me, too, since that was The Man Who Erased His Name.
Oh, right. I was going to say, what was the last? You've been here for so many episodes.
I have.
The Man Who Erased His Name. Yes.
The
Man Who Erased His Name. God damn, that is an ending.
That was an ending, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're here today to talk about Wanderstop, and it's an interesting one. And I always deliberately pick guests for the show, but when talking about Wanderstop and the themes and things that the game digs into, I wanted to have the both of you on here because you two are two of the hardest working people I know out there in content, making stuff, podcasting, going on other shows, doing all the stuff that you do. And that ties really well into today's game. So in case people don't know what Wanderstop is, we have some quick pitches for the top of the show. I say Wanderstop is a relaxing cup of tea with a heavy reality check for some people. Danny, what is the pitch for you?
My pitch is a cozy yet impactful story with constant objectives that'll wait for you to be ready to tackle them.
Mm-hmm. And Matt?
Mine is making tea while dishing tea and getting served some life lessons.
Yes, there we go. Quick stats before we get too deep into it. I played this on PC and Steam Deck back and forth between the two. It took 12 hours to hit the credits and the ending for me. How about the both of you?
So it took me about 14 hours and 30 minutes, and I also played it on PC and Steam Deck. I started it on Steam Deck, and then I think I played the majority of it on PC. It just felt better sitting in front of a bigger screen with a controller in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I started the preview. We got through the first season. Right. I started on PC. I got through the first season. I got my PlayStation key. I played through it there. So I've started this game 3 times. My PlayStation clock says 37 hours. But I blame that's because I stopped to fill out my physical field guide way too often. So yeah, about 12, 13 hours to beat.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's one, speaking of like where to play it, I often play games that have like tasks to do over and over again. Like we're going to talk about Stardew Valley a couple times throughout the episode, I think.
Yeah.
At least I am.
Cool.
And Stardew Valley is very much a handheld game for me. But kind of like Matt said, I wanted to play Wanderstop on the bigger screen because that kind of stuff is not really the point. but it did run well on Steam Deck for me. So if that's where you want to play it, it's a good place to do it as well. So, real quick, before we get into it, the director of the game is Davey Wreden, best known for the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide before this game. And I think that may play into why we all decided we were interested in playing Wanderstop in the first place. So, Matt, I will throw to you first. What was it that made you interested in playing Wanderstop?
Well, it's funny. Like, when I first saw the trailer for this game, saw it was a cozy kind of life sim, farm sim game, I went, oh, that's going to be for someone else, not me. Because in the past, like I've played a lot of them. I played Stardew Valley. I've played Potion Permit. I've played Animal Crossing, of course, in a variety of ways. And those games I enjoy when I'm playing them to a point. And then when the tasks become like overwhelming and more complicated, I kind of check out and go, peace, I'm done. If there's no story, I'm good to go. I finished Stardew Valley because I've played it with a friend. That's how I've gotten through some of those games. And so originally I was like, I'm not going to play this. But then I had found out that it was a Davey Wreden game. And for some background on that, I've still never played the Stanley Parable, which is a great disgrace. And I do plan to play it. But
shame.
Sometime last year, Jacob Geller did a video. And one of the games he was talking about in it was the Beginner's Guide. And he literally pauses his own video and says, hey, by the way, I'm going to spoil the hell out of the Beginner's Guide. It's like 2 hours long. Go play it. And I literally paused his video, went onto Steam, bought the Beginner's Guide, which had been covered on side quests already, but I had forgotten. And maybe it doesn't get spoiled in that. I haven't listened to that episode in a while. I did that ages ago. But I then played it, and immediately went back to Jacob's video after. And I was like, and I was blown away by that game. Of which my co-host on Funny Games, Jeff, is a huge fan of Davey Wreden and both of these games. And so once I found out that it was one of his games, I went, oh, okay, it's going to be one of those. And then the thing that really got me to play it was actually, Dave, your coverage of it. When you did the preview video and put it out on your YouTube as like one of your first video essay-ish kind of things where you just kind of talk over the gameplay. A, I wanted to support my homie, but also B, I was like, all right, well, I'll give it a watch because I'm curious about it. And once you started to talk about the narrative, I went, oh no. Oh, I have to play this.
This is made for me.
Basically. And so that's what got me to finally play it. And so I don't have a strong history with Davey Wreden, though I'm aware of him. But like now having played this, like the Stanley Parable jumped to the top of my list. Like I definitely will play that at some point this year, probably, because I love the way he crafts games. And we'll get more into that in a bit.
Right. And Danny, in your case, I know that you primarily focus the stuff that you make, your podcast and your videos and all that on indie games. So I'm sure that this was on your radar at some point, but what was it that made you want to jump in right away?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing at SGF, 2024, I think it was, we saw this trailer. I'm like, oh, this is really cute. I like the style of Wanderstop. And there's like one moment in that trailer, you see like Alta sitting on the bench and kind of squirming, and you have that dark music kick in and everything zooms and you get the vignette. I'm like, wait a minute. There's something here that's not just making tea. Like, hold on. I feel like if I'm not talking about it when it happens, I'm going to have the mad FOMO. I need to be ready for this one to come out. And I think at that time I hadn't played either of Davey's other games. And I was on an episode of the Overthinking Games podcast way earlier last year. And they have a gift, like when someone comes on for the first time, they will gift someone the Beginner's Guide. And I'm like, oh, cool. I wasn't
amazing.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the game at the time.
Damn.
And I was like, oh, I know Stanley Parable. So I did Beginner's Guide, bawled my eyes out. I'm like, oh no, why is this so insanely good? And then lucked out, we were doing a Wheel of Shame for a while. I'm like, here are the indies I haven't touched. Like Hades was on there for a while. Then we got Stanley Parable. I played that on stream. I had a chat full of people who are just like, oh, he's about to get this ending. I can't wait for him to see it. So another great time to play those recently before this one came out. But yeah, after finally getting my hands on it, was just that like, all right, this one feels like such a different vibe, but it's going to have the same impact to some degree. So I can't wait to see how it differs, but also relates.
Yeah, damn, you got me thinking now, like, if I were to gift every guest on my show a game,
Right.
It would have to be Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, I think.
Ooh, okay.
That would be very on brand.
I will wait for my Steam key then.
I think that my history with this really echoes the both of you. I played the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide several years ago. And I really, really like them. And the Beginner's Guide especially like resonated with me. The Stanley Parable was really neat, but I didn't get it. Like I've listened to other analyses of it, and beyond like the meta thing, I didn't like get what that game was doing. I didn't understand. The Beginner's Guide I understood, which made it kind of funny when both of you have mentioned like there was this new trailer, this new game that says it's about making tea, but everybody was like, well, Davey Wreden's making it. It's not just going to be about making tea. When that's like what the Beginner's Guide is kind of about, is parasocial assumptions about creators and stuff like that. Yeah. So guilty as charged. I saw that trailer and I was like, there's going to be some fucked up shit in here. I need it. So that's what made me want to jump in. And it was like that promise of, it's going to be a game where you spend your time making tea, but that's like, there's going to be something in there, a story. And I honestly, I expected a deep exploration of themes like these games usually have. And boy, does this game include deep exploration of themes while you're making tea. So 2 things I'll just mention up top. The gameplay I think is very, very simple. And if you're looking at this game and analyzing it and being like, is this a fun and engaging system of gameplay to farm and make tea and stuff? I don't think that it is, but that doesn't really matter because it's not one of those, min-maxy build an empire of tea type of like farming and management games. It's not like that. The tea making is a means to get the story. And the thing that I'll just throw out there at the beginning here is that every single one of our peers, every single person who's played this, who I've seen comment on it, has said something to the effect of, this game pierced straight into my soul and spoke directly in there. And I totally agree with that. Like everybody out there who, whether you've been actually burned out like Alta is in the story, or whether you just work really hard on something and care deeply about the thing that you make, this game has something to say to you. And it's very cool that I had that feeling. I know that we've all chatted about it. We've had this feeling. And then if you go look at like our like I said, our peers on Blue Sky or other podcasts or videos or something like that, everybody seems to have had this feeling. So this game feels like a success to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like we were in a group chat with a bunch of folks who got code so we could like kind of chat and figure out guesting on stuff. And like basically shout out to Mike Towndrow, who I think had finished his review copy before any of us even got ours and was like, oh boy, you're in for a ride, and basically gave us a warning from the beginning. I think we're friends also with a lot of indie creators. I'm blessed to also know some folks who work in the mainstream part of the biz as well, but a lot of the people I know and work with are people at our level making independent stuff, not for a major company, kind of under our own steam. And I think that's a certain level of emotional damage that is different. Not that the other folks in the more mainstream side of it don't have that as well, but I think we are all kind of in a similar lane that when this game actually verbally, mentally, and emotionally attacked us in that way and spoke to our souls, it was at a certain level that I think only people doing what we do might feel, or a version of what we do might feel.
Yeah, I think going into this season of Wanderstop, right? Because Dave, you and I both got the preview like a month before release, but I was very much like, I don't know who else on this planet is playing this while I am. And the only reason I found out, I think, was like 2 nights before I hopped on. I'm like, I have to knock out the rest of this preview, and I'm like, Dave Jackson has an hour. I'm like, okay. All right, Dave got the game. Got it. And then I put up my like, stayed up late to edit a video. Can't wait for you guys to see it. And you're like, I think we're playing. I'm like, I know we're playing the same game. Can't wait to do. And so
you gotta be coy boys about it.
Exactly. But now I'm just like, do I just like remove everyone who's not a creator on Steam so I could just not hide my list and be like, okay, I know what my friends are playing. This is cool. I know who's playing the same thing I am. But yeah, like as soon as like that happened, we had Jacob create this Discord group we talked about, and that was such a cool thing of seeing everybody else like have their moment of like, oh, this just happened to me, but like be super vague about it without the spoilers. And then I'm just like, I don't know if I'm where you're at or if you're ahead of me, or maybe I just something went over my head. I'm like, nope, never mind. I found it. I saw the thing you're talking about. Shit, that hurt. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just great in that being in that little zeitgeist group of like, oh, we're all doing the same thing at the same time. That's always really fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really fun. We've got a lot to dig into. So we're going to listen to some of the music, beautiful music in the game. And when we come back from the music break, we are going to set up the story of Wanderstop. Wanderstop was written by Davey Wreden and Carla Zimonia. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. But two people with principal writing credits for the game. In Wanderstop, you play as Alta, who is the only character who has full voice acting that I remember. Alta's voiced by Kimberly Woods. Alta is a gladiator who, after years and years without a defeat, suddenly loses. And this causes a bit of panic. She's super distressed by this loss, and she does what anybody does, pulls herself up by her bootstraps and loses again, and then again and again, and is just seemingly lost the winning edge. So she runs out into this forest. She hopes to meet with this master warrior named Master Winters out there, but suddenly her body just gives out. She falls down. She loses all her energy. She drops her sword and physically can't pick it up anymore. And a man named Boro finds her and brings her into this clearing where he has a tea shop called Wanderstop. And Boro has a great quote at the beginning of the game where he says, "You look so tired, you radiate exhaustion." And I was just like, yeah. I radiate exhaustion too, Boro. First of many times where it felt like Boro was speaking directly to me. So what this game is about is Alta is too burned out to continue on this quest to meet Master Winters, to train and get her strength back to fight. And so Boro offers her a chance to stay with him in the clearing, work at his tea shop, and relax and recover. And that's what this game is. The huge majority of the game takes place in this clearing as Alta is just doing stuff to help out at the tea shop, talking to customers, making tea, farming stuff, and stuff like that. So that's what this is. You'll be at the tea shop for a while. Before we get into talking about the thematic exploration and stuff, I want to talk a little bit about Alta and Boro as characters, because they're like complete opposite characters. Alta is the embodiment of like that ultra driven grind set mentality, never stop working. If you fall down, work twice as hard so you never fall down again. And Boro is the exact opposite of that. Boro is just like, it feels like a very European mindset to Boro, like, things will be fine. Like, just relax a little bit. That's a horrible impression of Europeans, but it does feel like a different mindset there between them.
Well done. Yeah, I mean, Boro, I've said in many places, Boro is friend-shaped. He's up there in the ranks of Kirby and many others, where he is, Gengar comes to mind, also friend-shaped. But also what I love about Boro as a character is he has an indie chuckle. What I mean by an indie chuckle is there are indie game characters that have certain chuckles that live with you forever. I think of the old woman from Celeste, the meh, 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 that she does every time she laughs has lived with me since I played that game. And then this Boro also has this kind of little like chuckle that he does every time he talks to you. Yeah. And it's funny you were saying voiced characters. So there are two other characters who get voices, Master Winters and a character named Monster that we'll talk more about later.
That's right.
Yep. But it's only in cutscenes.
Yeah.
Right. Very minor. Yeah.
Right. But otherwise, Boro is only voiced in his chuckle. And I'm curious because on IMDb, Boro is not credited as a voiced character. So I do wonder who did the chuckle for him. I would love to know just because I want to know. But yeah, and then like Alta is this character that is just so like like prickly, right? Like made of spikes almost in the early game. Like swords are basically coming out of her. She's just this complicated, very rough and driven, but also self-deprecating character that like blames herself for her failure and is very much like, well, that doesn't matter. I'm just going to get up and do it again. And I think it's really telling because in the intro of the game, she fails twice. She fails the first time. She's like, that's no big deal. I'm going to just do it again. I'm going to be fine. I'll just get back to the top. Starts to go back and loses again. And then it becomes again and again and again and again. And like it that encapsulates the kind of working personality that she has in such a short amount of time. Whereas Boro, like you said, is the exact opposite. He is just this light, feathery character. I love the animation of him getting off the bench because you see it many times because it's just this little hop that feels weightless almost. And that's his personality. He's this just effervescent character that is lighter than air almost.
Yeah. Boro was this instant ray of sunshine back from like the first trailer, right? I'm like, oh, what a cozy looking fellow. I can't wait to hang out with him. But then, you mentioned you have this like first interaction where like Alta passes out, wakes up on the bench, and she's immediately just like, I don't know who you are. I have places to be. And he's just like, hey, just take a break. It's gonna be all right. It just has this like very mellow. And again, I would have put the name out there for a live action cut. If we need Danny for Boro, I'm like
Get my vote.
A charming little like, oh, it's all right, Alta. Just take a break. Make me some tea. Like that was me the entire game. Every line of Boro was me doing this voice to myself, mumbling. Any piece of footage, I guarantee, just has like a little like, I'm in the background doing my thing as Boro. Like it's so warm and welcoming, right? And then you have this like, I guess, real second interaction where Boro's just like, hey, plans change sometimes. Like maybe take a break, maybe hang out here, and maybe you don't want to fight anymore. And then Alta just like snaps on him. I'm like, Alta, I don't want to play as you anymore. Do not yell at my Boro. I'm gonna be pissed. Don't do that to me. But yeah, just like from that moment on, there's this constant aura of anytime I'd watch Boro round the corner, and I'm like, you have a yellow button? Okay, not yet, but I want to. It's so nice to see you, buddy. You're so just welcoming in this small world that we have. Anytime I would see him, hear him, know that I have a mission for him, like it was just such a priority where I'm like, I need to make Boro happy, even if Alta's not.
Yeah, there's a real great dynamic between the two because, like as you said at the beginning, like before Alta agrees to stay in the shop, she gets really upset at the idea that she should slow down. She runs back out in the forest and she collapses again. And Boro brings her back and is like, listen, just take some time, hang out at the shop, help out, relax, rest, recover. And she like very reluctantly agrees to do it. And so we kind of get our introduction to one of the major themes of this game is burnout. And not just burnout, but like, even if you're not burned out, even if you're just doing something consistently for a long period of time. Like just speaking for myself, I would not say that I'm burned out doing my show and doing the things that I do, but it's a lot. It kind of dominates what I'm thinking about a lot of the time when I'm, in my free time and stuff. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. I work really hard on this. And there is that constant thing in the back of your head that says like, yeah, you could like take 2 weeks off. As the both of you know, you've been on the show before. I'm 2.5, 3 months ahead on recording. I could take a month off and not record anything. There's this voice in the back of my head that says, yeah, but if you take that month off, you're going to lose some of that time. And what's going to happen in that month when you're not doing stuff? Like there's that nagging thing. And Alta has that too, where she has this conflict between how tired she knows she is, but she can't stop. That inner drive that got Alta to the top in the arena will not let her stop when her body and mind need a break. And that's one of the things that is being explored here. And I remember in one of the pre-release trailers, Davey Wreden talked about how this game was born out of burnout from working on a previous project. And it has to be the same in such an extended type of artistic creation like making games, that if you work that hard for that long to make a game that works and is, let alone being good, just to make a game that works, how do you stop after that? Like, it's not like you can just flip the switch and turn it off, right? I think that's one of the most identifiable things that this game is really working with. And I think it does it really, really well.
Yeah, totally. I mean, as someone, I can safely say in this moment, I am not suffering from burnout. However, and Dave knows this, I used to host 4 podcasts, edit 3 or 4 podcasts, and produce another 3 or 4, which was like some of the back end planning, organization. And that was just normal to me. And when I would tell people, the reaction would always be some version of, oh my God.
What the fuck?
Yeah, basically. And became running gag for Dave and amongst our peers that I had so much stuff. And things have come to an end naturally and unnaturally. I'm looking at you, GameStop. You can go fuck yourself. But Game Informer's back, so it's all good. But still, fuck them. But I was doing so much, and I've definitely hit that wall and been burned out. But then there's that voice in the back of your head that goes, "But you can't stop. I know you're burned out, but you still have to keep working, because if you don't do it, these shows stop." And that was, by the way, never true, because I have co-hosts and other folks, and like I could have leaned on other people, but that's not how it works in my brain. And even now, when I'm only working on 2 podcasts currently, I'm writing articles, I'm playing games to talk about on Blue Sky or on Discord, I'm part of game clubs. Like, I still want to fill the time and do quote unquote work. And I think it's just the kind of like people ask me how I do it, how I have the dedication. I go, I don't know, it's my brain. It's broken, I guess. Like, that's just kind of it. And what I love about this game and how Alta is framed is, at least in the beginning, it's not necessarily framed as a bad thing. It's just a thing. This is her. This is how she is. This is how and this is all she's ever known. And I think a lot of people can think it's healthy to put yourself under that much stress, or that they need to get anything done. And that's basically how we meet Alta and the early discussions of burnout and her feeling overwhelmed, which is all too familiar to me. And I'm sure I'll be there again at some point, because I always overcommit to things. Dave and I used to like to compare our recording calendars. Like, how many are you recording this week? 4? Oh, I got 3, like
I got to catch up. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree, Dave. I think that it does it really masterfully. And even if Davey hadn't said this was about game development, I absolutely would have clocked that, because it's kind of, in the spoiler section we'll talk about, but there's a section of the game where it's like, the characters you're interacting with make it seem very obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like everything you said, Matt, I'm like, damn, yeah, okay, I get what Dave had. Okay, yeah, because like it's such a similar thing of like, I'm not working on too many projects at once, but I'm working on every project in 40 different ways, where there's March that we do like hey, here's 15 indie games coming out in March that you should pay attention to, because I know you haven't heard about them. And it just, the irony of the month where I'm like, I'm burned out, I can't do this, was when Wanderstop came out. I'm like, I didn't make a video talking about Wanderstop saying, make sure you guys play it. But it's make the long form for YouTube. And then every single one of those gets broken down to an Instagram reel and a TikTok and a YouTube short, and it gets linked to the main video. So it comes back this way. And doing that cycle every single month. March was I sat there working on the script. Every time I picked it up, I'm like, I don't want to look at this thing. I'm so uninterested in doing this, while I'm so interested in talking about these games, but at the same time, I just don't want to work on it. I wish it was just like done. So being in that moment while playing Wanderstop, there was this constant, like, I know this game wants me to not feel that. Like, it's like, hey, make sure you're taking time for yourself. While at the same time, I'm like, why am I playing Wanderstop when I should be editing something, or I should be cutting that thing out of the podcast from last week, or like I got to get clips out so I have them for, again, all the short form stuff. So it was that real reflective moment of like, I don't know what to do in life right now. I know what the game wants me to do. And Dave, you had a moment in the call or the Discord chat where it's like, hey guys, this one thing is not working for me. I can't tell if it's a bug or narratively this is what's supposed to happen. And I just want to accomplish this one thing. You're like, Danny, that's not what Bora. I'm like, Dave, I don't care what Bora would do right now. I want to play the game. I want to get this thing done. So yeah, there was a lot of reflection in the month of March while working on stuff. So yeah.
It does feel like the game is in conversation with my inner monologue sometimes. When talking about like my tendency to start a game up, play a couple hours, and then check how long to beat to find out how long the game is, so that I can plan the other games I'm going to play and plan when I'm going to be able to schedule the podcast and stuff like that. And it feels like the game is always talking about stuff. And like, I know we've all kind of talked about our experiences just briefly on, quote, doing too much, but I want to stress to people who don't make podcasts or don't do things like this, even if you just have a job that you go to all the time, this is normal life stuff as well. It's not just like creating things. It's not, turning your hobby into work or something like that. Like, normal life just grinds you down with all the shit that you constantly have to do all the time. And so it feels like a very relatable game, because I think a lot of people will go on vacation and they're like, okay, I'm on vacation. It's time to relax. It's time to let all the tension out.
How do I do it?
You sit there for 5 minutes and you're like, I got to get up. I can't just lay here. Like, maybe that's not a universal experience, but that's definitely, I'm not a like go on vacation and melt into a beach chair for a week person. Like, I can't unwind like that. And this game kind of touches on that too, very smartly. Like, the idea of the game is Alta goes to Wanderstop to recover from the burnout. It's so severe that she can't do anything related to what she wants to do. But the game is very smart in quickly letting you know, like, well, this is not going to fix Alta. This is going to like teach her some things that will help, and it will help her kind of reflect on stuff. This is not going to fix it. Just the same way that, like, if you're burned out, going on a long weekend trip is not going to fix you, or if you're exhausted, if you're stressed, if you're overworked or overwhelmed, going on, like I said, going on a week-long vacation at the beach is not going to fix that. It might distract you. You might have a relaxing week, but then it starts back up again. And this game is very smart about that too.
Yeah, I have to make a point to relax when I want to relax. Like, I'm capable of it. I like laying in the sun. I like hanging out on a beach or by a pool. But like, I really got to all right, that's what you're doing today, Matt. That's the thing you're doing. But even still, it's like, I can take those moments of relaxation, but I think it's harder to get to them more often now. Because just who has time to take vacations, especially if you have a day job of some kind, that time and PTO is often limited. So you have to pick the right moment. And if, say, you're someone who is also using that time to, say, go to a convention or something, you're then dividing the time between using time off for work and using time off for actual time off, which I try and keep a balance of. But like, absolutely, does it not fix you magically? Like, for me, when I was at my worst, burned out, my body would physically make me sick to make me stop. Like, I would get a fever and be sick for days, and I would have to stop because I literally can't do anything, because I was emotionally not good at recognizing those signs. So my body would just be like, all right, bet, I'm just going to make you stop. Now you're sick for 3 days. How do you like that?
We're shutting it down. Yeah.
Basically.
I don't like this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like the reflection. I want to go home. Just echoing everything Matt said, 100%. I'm not so much like the physical illness of like, I have to stop, but I think I'll even find myself more than before of just like, I've been working for like 4 hours. Let me doom scroll for 30 minutes, just at my desk. Don't go anywhere. What's on TikTok? What's on Instagram Reels? What can I use to just break everything down and then look up? I'm like, oh, right, I guess I should get back to work quick. I think that's been maybe not healthy is the word, but I think healthier than just staring at the screen.
Just nonstop. Yeah. Doom scrolling is not really the prescription for anything, but at least you're looking at a different screen. Maybe.
Exactly.
So one of the other themes I think this game really touches on, we see Alta at her worst basically, but this game also kind of has a lot of stuff that has to do with how she got to that point, and this like hyper productivity grind culture type situation. Like I said, this is what got Alta to the top. It made her the best warrior in the land, is this mindset of never give up. If someone's training for 10 hours a day, you train for 12 hours a day. Like all that, you hear about like these, I'm a basketball fan, so I hear about all these like just psycho tendencies of pro athletes and how hard they go at it because they have to do that to be at that level. And then this game kind of talks about that. And I think they do an interesting thing too, where it feels like there's a commentary on cozy farming games. We talked about this a little bit in my unpacking episode, which happens to be probably the only other quote cozy game I've done on the show. But how like a lot of cozy games get you into this mindset of like, well, let me min-max my farm and let me make as much money as I can. And I remember playing Moonlighter and being like, so I'm supposed to like really dig into like make as much profit as I can in this shop. This isn't cozy at all. Like the way that I've seen some people play Stardew Valley is not cozy. It's if you have an Excel spreadsheet to play a farming game, like you're not doing the cozy thing. I'm sorry. So this game is very different from that. And there's a couple of little quotes here that I would like to bring up from Boro. So Boro tells Alta to take time, rest, let her mind wander. And Alta says, that sounds unproductive. And Boro says to her, Miss Alta being so productive is causing her great harm, it would seem. So Alta is that person who, if you tell her to go sit on a bench for 5 minutes, she can't handle it because she's not doing something productive with that time. And so Boro is like, again, on the opposite of that. He says, in our tea shop, we have no goals to meet, no schedule to keep. We work on our own time. And we'll talk about this a little bit more with gameplay. But Boro is presenting an alternative. And it's not like a realistic alternative for the real world to like live like Boro does, I don't think. But Boro is that other voice, like the angel on your shoulder has gotten so overpowered by the devil on your shoulder. And Boro is such a great, like, breath of fresh air to be like, not every minute of your waking day has to be the most productive minute. Like, it's okay to just chill sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, boredom is a luxury, right? People who don't have, like, either because of work or life or whatever else, sometimes you can't be bored because of what life is throwing at you or what you're throwing at yourself. And so I always try and remember when I'm bored, when I have 5 minutes to stare at a ceiling or pet my dog or, literally do anything but look at my phone. It's a reminder like, oh, I'm bored. That's actually a good thing. Because, I mean, as a kid, I couldn't, like, if my dad said, sit still and I'll give you $1, I couldn't, like, for a minute, I couldn't do it. Like, I was just too hyper, too overworked, too, shocking, anxious, shocking to everyone listening, I'm sure. And so, like, I love that this game is very much steeped in, even as a farming sim, the theme-wise, like this, take a minute, just relax, just sit there. It's a mechanical thing, but I want to mention it here. The game never makes you stand up. When you sit to do anything, whether it's to drink tea, which we'll talk about more in a bit, to have a conversation, whatever, in a lot of video games, the character automatically stands up when the cutscene's over so you can do the next thing. This game never does that. As far as it's concerned, you could sit forever and they would be perfectly fine.
Let's kind of dive into that, because one of the things I wanted to mention is I think people used to use this word a lot, in games criticism, and then people started to think it was cringe, but it's actually still relevant. It is the dreaded ludonarrative dissonance,
Yes.
where what you're doing in the game doesn't match up with what the story is trying to like present that you should be doing in the game. And this game is the opposite of that. So you mentioned like the game never makes you stand up. And I mentioned that in the story, Boro is this voice telling you, hey, you can sit on that bench as long as you want to. You don't have to be productive. And this game walks the walk in addition to talking the talk. So when you're in the tea shop, you don't have deadlines. You don't have that many customers. If a customer wants something, there's no time limit for filling their order. You don't have to build a quote, a farm. You can literally like, oh, I need this fruit. I will plant just the required plants to make one of these fruits and then go make the tea. Like it's the tea farming and the fruit farming is really a means to solve the puzzle of getting the NPC quest lines furthered along the path there. But the game tells you at the very beginning that you can do whatever you want on whatever pace you want. If you want to spend time raking leaves, if you want to spend time planting 100 million fruit trees, if you want to just walk around with the garden shears and cut vines, or if you just want to sit and listen to the music, everything is fine. Do anything at your own pace. And for someone who doesn't play a lot of games that give that kind of freedom, this really reminded me of one game in particular of Red Dead Redemption 2, and how if you two have played it, so many people complain about how slow and methodical Red Dead Redemption 2 is. And to me, it is the game telling you this is not Grand Theft Auto. You have to slow down and get on our rhythm of this game. And then you can take in the experience that we built. And Wanderstop's very similar because remember Stardew Valley, you have time limits for every day. You need to use your every minute efficiently in Stardew Valley so that you can plant the plants and go into the mines and do everything that you want to do. And in this game, they're just like, nah, whatever you want, whatever pace you want. If it takes you 100 hours to get through Act 1, that's cool. You're not going to miss out on any of the story. Everything is fine. And so it all meshes together really well. What the story message for Alta is also the kind of the gameplay message for me playing the game, where like, it's okay to slow down if you want to drink a cup of tea and get some of Alta's backstory, and then just kind of chill and watch the little snail conveyor belt take the cups up the waterfall, which I did several times, and just kind of like chilled and listened to the music.
Yeah.
You can do it. And it's really well done how the game works the same way the story works.
Yeah. It's one of the things that also made this game playable for me, in the sense that my biggest problems, like I had alluded to at the top of the show, with games like Potion Permit and Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, and I'm only picking on these games because I've played them, and I've played them most recently of other games, is that they often have missions and seasons and time progression, and if you miss it, you miss it. And this, like, Dave's not kidding. You can take orders from everyone in the season and then just not do them. And there's no pressure. They don't say anything. They don't come bother you. There's no ticking timer. You can just literally fuck off to whatever you want. Yeah. You could just kind of disappear into the weeds and be like, I live in the forest now. I mean, not quite, but like you can give in to the space and not do anything. And it made doing smaller side missions and like interacting with the characters more fun. You go pet a pluffin, which are the best. Like you can literally do whatever you want and the game never penalizes for you. And there's no fail state either in this game. Like we'll get into it more with gameplay, but like if you screw up an order, you just do it again. Or sometimes even if you screw it up slightly, it still completes. It's just you get different dialogue. Like this is the most casual game, non-derogatory, that I've ever played.
Yeah.
There's no money in this game. Nope. Like that's like it's a game where you're running a shop and there's no money. So there's no incentive for you to try and do as many as you like. If you fill all the orders in 10 minutes, you're not going to get, extra
any
stuff.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
sorry,
absolutely.
I cut you off there, Danny.
No, you're good. 100, like in the same hat, right? And I'm bringing it back. You brought up like Moonlighter earlier. You know, I did that side quest for Matt and talked about how much like I love just the methodical, like I go in, I get the stuff, I come back, I guess the money too low. Like that was such a routine for me, right? So as we get into Wanderstop, and I mentioned like I've played the first season of this game 3 times, where like after the second time, I'm like, okay, I know every fruit in this area is going to be used at least like once or twice. So I got it like I would start that chapter with seed, grow, grab everything I needed and just like churned out of that first chapter again, because it was the third time I was playing it. But like I knew what was coming at me. I knew what people were going to request. So I wanted to get that done. And that kind of established me moving forward for the next like 2 chapters. Probably I would start each one with like, find the new seed, plant the seed, get like 10 to 15 of these seeds. So I just have them. And then would ultimately end every season with a stack of 30 yellow seeds and 25 pink seeds. Where I'm like, I didn't need anywhere near all of these. And like reflecting that on how I ended up playing like the final chapters, right? Where I was very much just like, what do you want? Got it. Ran out and got the things then. Like I didn't have a field. Like in chapter 3, there's a very important moment where you like have an interaction in a field. That was my farm. That whole cutscene was covered with flowers and plants and bushes because I put everything there. And I was like, if I didn't do that, I would have seen that cutscene as it was intended. But like, you know, Alta's like, oh no, I'm talking to someone while there's an Azzy berry sitting on her face. And I'm like, okay, next time we'll do it. But yeah, and then you made the comparison to Red Dead, which I famously am not a fan of. And I think that was more of the chore of the, you know, everything you have to do. And you're mentioning the slog, but I'm also just not big on Rockstar, period. But like, seeing the comparison of like this game wants you to slow down and how much more I enjoyed experiencing that in Wanderstop, where it felt more like I discovered the story through how I played it, as opposed to how I felt in Red Dead. I was like, oh, cool. I've experienced that I don't like this game just for a number of reasons that don't sit well with me. And yeah, seeing that comparison was really interesting. I'm like, oh, well, Wanderstop was just fun, I guess. I don't know if Red Dead was.
It's interesting because like I said before, I think the act of planting, harvesting, I think like the act of there's the tea thing that you're making the tea in is like this huge apparatus. It takes up the entire room, and it's like comically big, kind of like a magical, you know, place. The clearing is a magical place. The tea shop is a magical place, and you have this giant thing that you make the tea with. I thought the act of like going through the bespoke motions to like pull the rope to fill the thing with water and then like pump the fuck that thing is called. I can't remember the furnace. The furnace to heat the water. And then you got to go over and open the lid and individually drop in your ingredients. And it's like, it's a production to do that. I thought that was like, it's okay. The act of planting and, you know, doing various tasks around the clearing is not like really mechanically satisfying to me. It's kind of just like something you do. I mean, it works. It's not like I was ever like, oh, I accidentally cut down the tree I didn't mean to cut down. Like it works. But I think if you're looking at this and you're like, okay, is this a fun and satisfying game mechanic? I don't think that it is, but it didn't really bother me because this game isn't asking you to do that in a way that like is hyper productive and efficient and min-maxy. Like you can be like, oh, I need a tree with this fruit. I can plant it right outside the door of the tea shop if I want to, if I don't want to run across the clearing to get it. So it's like a kind of game that's just like, nah, this almost doesn't matter. Like it's something you got to do from time to time to make the tea that the customers want, but it's not the point of it. And that makes me more able to get over the fact that it doesn't feel great to plant trees and, you know, run over and cover the water, run around the clearing and collect tea leaves and stuff like that. Like as a you know, a fun game thing, I don't think that it is that great. But it never, I was like, I'm doing this once and I'll do it again in like an hour and a half, maybe. It's not a big deal to me. If this was a game where I had to like make up perfect rows of plants and have this efficient watering system and try to get as many customer orders in a certain time period, then I would have gotten sick of the mechanics to plant and farm and stuff like that.
Would have been like a detriment to your like typical, 100%.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm comparing it to Stardew because I played a shitload of Stardew. People may not know that about me, but I played hundreds of hours of Stardew before I started this podcast.
I'm a nut.
So I'm very familiar with that game. And like, it's really simple in that game, but it's like quick, it's snappy. It's like, I don't know. I think it's fine to do that stuff. But you have to do a whole lot more of it in that game. So it needs to be more, at least quicker, more satisfying like that. And yeah, in Wanderstop, it's just not the point. There's like sometimes, and I want to get your takes on this because I guarantee you don't play many games like this. Sometimes you don't have customers at all. And if you go ask Boro what I should be doing right now, he'll say, I don't know. Do what you feel like doing. And if you don't have a task in a video game, that feels like that goes against rule number 1 of making video games is you have to give the players something to do. And this game is like, nah, just entertain yourself. Something will happen sometime. But for the next indeterminate amount of time, just chill, just exist here. And that's not something you do in video games, like ever.
Yeah, it was one of those things that was one of the first most self-reflecting moments is I did a bunch of stuff, finished a bunch of orders, and then went to Boro and went, what do I do now? And he went, I don't know. You'll figure it out. And I went, what? What do you mean?
Answer.
And then I kind of just like, I sat for a minute and then like I planted more plants and I was like, I don't want to do this. And like, it's very funny. I'm of two minds of the gameplay. Like, I agree with Dave. I think it is fine. The gameplay is fine. But I also don't historically love these kinds of games. So like, I'm glad that there wasn't a ton of friction. But it was satisfying, I felt, to complete the orders and serve the orders. But like the steps to get to that point were less so. But also, I think that's by design a little bit, that there's a tiny bit of friction because Alta clearly doesn't want to do any of this and is not enjoying most of it. And so that's
true. Yeah.
There is a part of it where like I would sit and go, ugh, I gotta make what? With how many fruit?
Yeah.
And then I went, oh, but that's pretty much how Alta would act. So I guess, yeah, that's by design. And so like, I'm with you, Dave, that I don't think the gameplay, I almost called it the combat. The game, there's no combat in this game. Death of many fruits and seeds, I guess. But like the gameplay was entertaining at times, and I liked some of it. But I think as the game goes on, it wore on me a bit just because I typically don't play these kinds of games, but I was in hook, line, and sinker for the narrative. And they have to have those gaps because they do serve the purpose. There was never a moment where I was doing part of the gameplay where the result of the thing I made it never resulted in something that was unimportant to the story of either the characters or of Alta. So it all worked. It just sometimes was a little grating.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think I would agree. Like the controls being like serviceable, and yeah, you mentioned already. Like Alta doesn't enjoy this, so like it feels like I am experiencing Alta doing this. And in reflecting on that, like I think of like chopping down all the weeds, right? Like I didn't know for the longest time I could just hold the button, so I would just walk like ching, 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 and just cut single ones. And eventually, I'm like, wait. And she started doing a little bit faster. I'm like, oh, I'm a lawnmower now. Like I can knock this out. But then that troll was followed by every item or dirty mug or whatever would pop out of those. I'm like, I'm gonna have to pick all these up. Which is still a chore, but it was the like, my pockets are full, run inside, wash 5 cups, go back out, 10 more cups. Still nothing, Boro? All right. And go out and get like, 5 more little items and put them on the shelf. And like those quiet moments of Boro being like, there's nothing to do. There's no customer. I'm like talking to, Nana or whoever else is chilling there. I'm like, nothing? You have nothing to say to me. All right. Then I guess what do I not have in my journal yet? I haven't drinking this type of tea. Let me go do that.
Yeah.
Or like I'll put 2 fruits in and whichever one, it's like, oh, we read the one that you already did. I'm like, all right, now I got to go make new tea because I didn't use only this fruit. And I need to hear what Alta has to say about her father in this one and like, et cetera, et cetera. So I was constantly just like, even when there was nothing to do, I'm like, Danny's got something to do. Danny's going to find something. And whether that's the bad reflection or not, I had no like, at first, like I don't know what to do, but found a way to entertain myself and keep myself going until I saw that little yellow bubble. I'm like, oh, sweet. Who's here now? What's up? What do you want?
Yeah. I don't think that there are many people who are enlightened enough that they will actually just go sit on a bench for like 30 minutes and just, chill. But I do like how this game challenges the way that games work, where it's task after task and it's spaced hits of dopamine for doing your tasks and getting your treats. And especially this genre of the cozy farming game, I shit all over Dave the Diver on this podcast because it felt soulless, and it felt like it just set up a loop of, I do this so that I get this, and with this I can do this, and that will give me money to buy this, and that will let me do this. And it's just this loop of treats and things that I get and little sound effects and stuff like that. And like, this game feels like it's in open conversation with other games like that, where you're just on this constant treadmill of, new stuff so that you can do more stuff. And, you never have a game, like I said, that just says, no, we don't have anything for you. Check back in 20 minutes. We might have something. And it feels like games, it feels illegal. Like it feels wrong for a game to not have a task for me. But like you said, there are things you can do. You can drink the tea that you make for the customers. Alta can drink them too. And you'll make a pot, a huge thing of tea. It can serve 8 people, and you'll never need to give it to more than one person. So you can always take a cup for yourself. Each different fruit that you make will unlock a memory from Alta's past, and she'll kind of self-reflect a little bit. And they all have really weird, effects. Like, this fruit will make you remember the breakfast you ate the most when you were a kid, or something like that. And so Alta will have these little monologues about them. And that's where you get the majority of the voice acting in the game is those monologues. And they're never very long. I would say they're a minute long max.
Give or take, yeah.
But they're good. There's a lot of them. I did every single one of them. And it was not because I needed something to do. It was because I was genuinely curious about Alta's past. And so, that is an optional activity you can do that will have good benefits for you if you're into the story at all.
Yeah. They also might be harmful to your own mental state if you relate to any of them. There was one, I think I talked about this in our group chat, but there is a moment where Alta reflects on her dad. Mm-hmm. And for the listeners who may not know, I recently lost my dad last year. And so the minute that started and she started talking about actually how she didn't respect her father and he seemed meek and weak and like this whole narrative of this interaction between them, I went, oh no. And and it got me. And it's something that might not get someone else, but because of where I was and because those moments, they're really brilliant, because you can sit anywhere that you can sit, you can have one of these moments. And then the camera will always turn away from Alta and look at the scenery while the voiceover happens. So you're just forced to take it in. And it's just really powerful. And that moment really got me. And I wanted to get all of those too for the same reason. It was less about checking off the guide and more that I wanted to hear what Alta had to say. And some of them were really funny. If you mix certain things, or it was a certain kind of fruit, she just reacted to how weird or bad something tastes or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so there was levity too. And so I really liked that you weren't sure what you were going to get, but I wanted to hear what she had to say. And we haven't said it yet, but Kimberly Woods' performance as Alta is absolutely incredible. And
really good.
And this is, I think, her first game as a lead. She's been in other stuff, but this was her first lead role that I could see in her IMDb. And so I'm glad, and I hope she gets more, because she was phenomenal and it brought you in every time she started to talk.
Yeah. I remember one, like you said, there are the serious ones that kind of they show you that Alta's always been this way, even since she was a kid, basically. And you just fill in, gaps in that stuff. A lot of her stories from when she was younger are not heartwarming stories. They're very much Jesus Christ, Alta, come on, always, huh? And then there's some jokes in there too. There's one customer that wants you to make tea that tastes like books. So you just make tea and throw a book into it. And then you can drink that yourself. And Alta's yep, tastes like books. Pretty gross. And then stuff like that. So those are really good. I wanted to just shout out a couple quick things about, gameplay and narrative, since we kind of mixed that up here. Speaking of books, there are books that you can get in the game that are like these spy drama parody books called Dirk Warhard. Please, if you haven't played Wanderstop, please read all of these. They're fantastic. Yes. The last one legitimately made me laugh out loud. And I don't mean like, I mean like a belly laugh reading some of these Dirk Warhard books. They're very good. And there's not a lot to read in the game except for these, other than dialogue. There are other books that you can pick up, but these are like the ones where you're like, oh, they're having so much fun with this right now. They're really good. I assume that you read them because I think I was pretty loud about that you should read them.
Yeah, I think I read the first two, and then I was like, maybe I need to read these like back to back. And then I just kept putting them on the shelf in the order they were coming in the book club. And the next thing I knew, I'm like, I'm rolling credits. I didn't go back to the books. So I need to go load chapter 5 and read the last like 3 and see like which ones I've missed. I'm like, okay, this thing happened. So a chunk of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read all of them and they were just goofy. Like if you picture like those private detective novels and then just like amp up the ridiculousness and like and throw in some poor grammar for good measure, and it's very good. Also you get like a science book at one point and some other things, and you can display all of those books. And also, since we're talking about the books, there's also a book of answers, which I really loved. This is my favorite way a game has dealt with the mechanics of figuring things out in a game. The Book of Answers is literally a book of answers. If you pick it up and open it, whatever active quests you have, it has the solutions for them. And if you don't have an active quest, it will like say like what's coming next or where to go or who to talk to. And you don't have to use it. You can just leave it on the shelf. And I found myself, I used it maybe 3 or 4 times, like not a ton, but like towards the end of the game, as the recipes got more complicated, it was like, I just want to get through this to get to the next story beat, and used it. But I think that's brilliant because it's literally like the best way to, I think, to incorporate accessibility for these puzzles without like, because then you just choose to read it. Now, could they give you a hint system or something? Sure. But I think for something like this, it really works because there's no real way you could hint. The descriptions for the tea and the descriptions of the fruit or how you get to the solutions. And if it goes a little over your head, this book was perfect. And so I'm glad it was included in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I used it once at the very end of the game. Like, so I don't think we've really said this yet, but the way the game kind of progresses is customers come into the shop, they will give you an order for tea, and they start out very simple, 1 fruit, tea, etc. And then the ones at the very end of the game are really complicated. And it kind of got that feeling, like you said, Matt, where it's like, man, can we limit it to like 2 fruits and, not weird secret ingredients? There was one where it was like a non-fruit ingredient. I was like, I don't know what the fuck they want here. So yeah, you just check the book and move on. And it's one of those things where whoever made that decision was just like, we're just going to trust the player that they'll look at the book as often as they need to. And again, if like they spoil the solution to a puzzle to what a customer wants, that's not the point of the game. So who gives a shit? Like, they're just going to they're going to look up a guide on IGN or something if they get stuck and we don't have it. So who cares? Just put it in the game.
Anyway. Yeah. I didn't use the Book of Answers very much. Again, Dave, the moment where I'm like, I'm stuck. What do I do? You're like, did you check the Book of Answers? And the book was like, you should turn in that tea you have. I'm like, I can't. I physically can't. So like, but outside of that, like I found any of these moments of like, what do I need to do was whether it was the virtual one or again, the physical one of like, all right, which one of these makes something taste like my favorite flavor of ice cream? It's this one. Okay. So I'm going to put that in here. Got it. And then it was just the sparks flying off of like, all right, you go in. I want this to taste like dirt. How do I get a pile of dirt? What do I need to do? And like, I mentioned this in our review over on Playlog where I was like, there's a lot of mechanics that like come in later that felt so like rudimentary where I'm like, how is this in the final chapter, not like chapter 2? Like if someone asked for like, I just want cold tea. I don't want hot tea. And like, oh yeah, just don't use the furnace then. I'm like, huh.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I guess like that totally makes sense. That's not confusing. That just feels like something someone would ask for 4 seasons ago instead of now at the end of the game. Yeah. So it's just like, how important is this going to be? And I think you do it like once, maybe twice. I'm like, okay, sure.
Yeah. Not a major part of the game. Another thing just to mention real quick is those side characters, those NPCs that come in, the customers are the side characters in the game. And they're all really like big, memorable personalities, we'll say. They're all like very goofy on the surface, but all of them will have a storyline as you learn about them. And with the exception of a couple of them, I think that the side character storylines are really, really good and tie into the main story in really, really interesting ways as well. There are, there are customers that, look up to Alta and want her to be the warrior that she once was, and that causes some conflict in Alta because she wants to impress somebody. She wants to be who she used to be, but she can't right now, and that causes some conflict. There are, like you said, I know who you're talking about. We'll talk about these characters in the spoiler section, but like feels like let's say experiences in the business world condensed down into characters that are like really funny, but also very like, fuck yeah, that is the business world. So a lot of like really good stuff. So these characters, they seem very cartoonish on the surface, but I would say that I can only think of one of them where I'm like, I'm not really sure what that was about other than just being kind of weird. Everyone else was like, man, they're really they're digging deep into these characters, even though you may only talk to them 4 or 5 times in the whole game.
Some barely even once. Like there's like 2 characters I think I'm like, hey, what's up? You want some tea? Here you go. I'm out. I'm like, oh, they'll be back. They always come back. I'm like, he never came back. I really thought something was going to happen with that guy. Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were great. We'll talk favorites in the spoiler section, but like also the design, like we haven't really talked a ton about the visuals yet, but like, this is a gorgeous video game.
It is.
And the character designs, especially, it reminded me of like kind of old school Pixar, like in the fact that all the characters are exaggerated. Like I said, Boro is friend shaped. He's like oval shaped, like simple shapes. And
I've never heard that description before. I love the description friend shaped.
Friend shaped.
You clearly haven't played enough Kirby games, because that's how we all talk about Kirby. He's round and friend shaped. But but I love the design of the characters. They just all stand out. I may not remember the name of every character, but like I can distinctly remember what they looked like and what their vibe was. The game broadly is just gorgeous. Like I'm glad the Steam Deck runs it well, but like I wouldn't have been shocked if it did struggle in places, because like it's this big area. The colors are really bright and colorful, except at that one time. We'll get to that. But like for the most part, it's like a wash of pinks and oranges and purples. And it's just like, I've never taken more screenshots in a shorter video game than I have in this game. Like, I've got 50 to 100 screenshots of this game.
Yeah. You know how many games give you in-game cameras, like items in the game, and say like, hey, go take pictures. Like like every Yakuza game gives you a camera, and I don't use that fucking camera. I'm not taking pictures. Like I'll take screenshots in Yakuza games, but I'm not pulling out the camera to take pictures of people on the street or something. But Wanderstop gives you that camera, and there are just so many beautiful shots. Like it might not even be something special. It might just be like, oh, the tree is framed up really well right now. Let me take a picture of this beautiful, like weeping willow looking tree. And it's just really gorgeous. Like you said, super colorful, and the color palette changes throughout the game. Never becomes any less beautiful. Even that one time, beautiful in its own way.
Yes.
And it lends this magical vibe to the clearing, into the shop. Like I said, the design of the shop itself, it feels like the coziest fucking place in the world. With the giant tea thing in the middle of it, and the whistle that plays when the tea is heated up enough. Like it's just, there's a place in the tea shop where it's like a bunch of couches in front of a fireplace. It's like, I want to lay down on that couch and play Switch games right now. Like that's what I want to do, and drink some tea. And just the way they designed all that. But like visually, character models, like you said, it's just gorgeous. Like not going for a realistic looking style. It's very stylized, but yeah, so colorful and good looking.
Not much more to add. Like you covered everything. I love the Pixar style of these characters. Like again, we'll get into more of them soon, but like after seeing like, oh, I've seen this guy a couple times, he's pretty cool, but then some becomes so much more exaggerated and animated. I'm like, okay, I thought we were more grounded in this, and I'm seeing how like wild these designs are going to get. And yeah, one of the characters talk about later, I fell in love with instantly, and I just like wanted to keep staring at them like the entire time. Like, you're so immaculate. There's something just satisfying at your existence here. Please never leave my side. Like, they're so great, and like this is where I want that gorgeous art book of like, what was the original design of this character, or what did they change, or how could this person have looked, or and I want to see every single instance that they had. I'm like, oh, but this dude would have been super cool.
Or just give me a watercolor of like the clearing and the shop like that. It would be beautiful. Great. Yeah. As far as presentation goes, the other part of like building out that vibe is the music in the game, which is done by, I don't know how to say this, C418.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
The person who made the music for Minecraft most famously did the soundtrack for this, and is also like a co-studio head of Ivy Road, as far as I know. This soundtrack is very chill for the most part. It is kind of like what you might expect in a game where you're making tea for people. But it's very melancholy for a lot of it. It is a lot of like, sad contemplative piano for a lot of the songs. But it's peaceful. And, so we mentioned those times where it's like, we don't have something for you to do. You need to chill. Go sit on a bench, drink a cup of tea. The music is just very beautiful during those sections. Or there's a thing you do in the game to kind of bring on a state change in the world and move from act to act. And the music is really beautiful during those sections too. So generally, I have more thoughts about it, but I'll turn it over to you both. Generally, I think the music in this game is really, really nice.
Yeah, totally. Super soothing. I had such again, the moments where I'd stop to fill out this field guide was pause the game and just kind of let Alta exist while I'm putting in stickers and everything. And the music just sat there in the back of my head where I'm like, oh, let me capture this. Or I'm like, for the review, I got to have, background music from it. So let me record like 5 minutes. Yeah. Which then I look up, I'm like, I've been recording for 32 minutes. Oh no, I need to like fix that. But with, C418, actually it was funny. I'd put out the preview on TikTok, like, hey, this game looks cool. Can't wait to play the whole thing. And then I get a comment like, the Minecraft guy reacted to your video. I'm like, proof it didn't happen. And like the top video on their page was just like them green screen over my footage, just doing the like nod and like, yeah, he really likes what he's playing, right? I'm like, oh, what a sweet guy. Like, such a nice person. No long conversations, but yeah, that was like, I had no idea the connections to Minecraft when, playing this game early enough until I saw more in like the press emails. I'm like, oh, that's so stuff. That's really great. Yeah. The music's awesome. I'd love a vinyl.
Yeah. I'm a big music nerd, as folks know. So like the first thing I look up is who wrote it and who did the music. And I played a lot of Minecraft. Talk about not loving farming and creating games, but like Minecraft is the ultimate multiplayer game. Most of the time I would just have my friends Brian and Joe do all the work, and I would just kind of exist and hang out. Like, oh, you built a house and like a grid and a power grid and a staircase. Great. I'll hang out over here, maybe pet a chicken. But so I'm very familiar with their work and love the music. And so the minute I started hearing the songs in this game, I went, oh, yeah, I can totally tell. But the thing that really was fascinating to me as I dug deeper is, so we've talked a lot about the themes of the game and how it's a lot of negative emotions, or I guess let's not put like weight on it, a lot of harder, abrasive emotions. The game's soundtrack does that too. And some of these lighter songs, there'll be like minor notes where there should be a major note, or should take this weird upswing or downturn. And it's very well composed with those moments in mind. So it shows that there's something kind of just hiding right underneath the surface. And I definitely noticed it during gameplay, but even going back and listening to the soundtrack, which I've done a lot, I notice it just listening casually. Like there'll be this off note or this weird little underlining thing. And I'll be like, so even in the music, they knew that they wanted to include that because of the kind of content this game would have. And I think that's also a brilliant touch.
Yeah, I keyed in on this kind of similar thing where there's a couple of tracks that play pretty prominently that have just kind of like this burning, fuzzy undertone to it. And then sometimes that undertone will stop being an undertone and it will be the melody. Yeah. And it will dominate the track for some time. And like you said, really reinforces the state that Alta is in, because maybe her mind is taken off of things as she's doing stuff around the clearing, or maybe she is legitimately enjoying herself, but that struggle is still there just under the surface, and it can come out at any time. And the soundtrack really reflects that. There's also like non-music sounds in some of the tracks. Like I notice it most in the tea shop, and maybe it's just in the tea shop, but there's like, so you have like this nice music inside the tea shop. It's really calming and stuff. And in the background, for some reason, there's ringing phones and barking dogs and a bunch of stuff. Like, again, to me, echoing like I can be having a decent time going through these little tasks and, just enjoying myself. But can I really shut that part of my brain off that's like busy all the time? Not really. And the music, felt like that to me too. Listening to the soundtrack again today, I also heard what, maybe a simple surface level comparison, but really some Breath of the Wild soundtrack in here too.
Yeah, totally. I can see that.
In some of the songs, they kind of have that same feel as like if you go to a village in Breath of the Wild or something like that. But the thing that made me really key into that is the music when you're going around in the clearing. A lot of times you don't have a song going the whole time. You'll have those little piano twinkles like Breath of the Wild had as you're out exploring, because that game doesn't have music all the time. Sometimes you'll just get a, do, couple of piano keys and then music's gone for 30 more seconds. And this game kind of has that feeling too. So it's a more diverse soundtrack, I think, than maybe I would have thought. Maybe just judging it by its cover or something like that. But really, really effective for what this game is.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I'm someone who emotionally resonates with music as well as subject matter. And so like some of the best scenes that we will talk about behind the spoiler wall are also the best scenes in some, which is pretty typical for the best games that we tend to play, that they just enhance those moments. And I love that the soundtrack is just versatile in that way. And I'm not surprised by it, but I'm grateful for it because I really dug it.
Well, we have talked about basically as much as I think I want to talk about non-spoiler wise. So it's time to get into our kind of wrap up housekeeping, and then we can get into spoilers here. So what we do here is we answer the question, as always, who do you think should play Wanderstop? What type of person? It's an interesting one with this game. It's a kind of two-part. What kind of person do you think this game would appeal to? But also, I think it's relevant to think about what kind of person this game will speak to when we recommend it. Because I myself have made some recommendations, not based on what types of games that person normally plays, but just because I know them pretty well, So, Danny, I'll throw to you first. What do you think? Who do you think should play Wanderstop?
Oh, man. Like, it's coming off of, we just did our Celeste book club, right? And I made the statement, like, if you pick up a controller on any regular basis, like, you should play Celeste. There's not a gamer who shouldn't play Celeste. And like, starting in Wanderstop, I wanted to like leave the game with like, every gamer should play this game. And I know it's not gonna be for everyone. It just, some people won't resonate with my objective is not directly put in front of me, right? Of course, I think most cozy gamers who play your Stardew's, your potion permits, your insert whatever here, I think will love this. I think it'll be a different pace. I don't know if they'll love it the same, but I think is a step they should take. But at the same time, I also think there's a lot of people who play the more AAA, your Call of Duties, your God of Wars, these, we're all Call of Duty for that, but like going with like a God of War Horizon that have these important narratives that give you, here's a story of this character and how they went through a thing that is given in such a big cinematic way. I think they could experience such a touching and impactful narrative in such a smaller scale. Like, I definitely think those narrative driven guys will fall in love with what this game has to offer.
Yeah, agreed. Matt, what do you think?
So I agree with all of that. I also think this is a good inexperienced or non-video gamers' first video game. Like, obviously, I think there's an age range I wouldn't like. Maybe a teenager and up, I think this is perfectly fine for. A young kid may just not get it. They might still enjoy it. But for sure, like, I'll use my spouse as an example, who plays some games, but isn't like a gamer huge into video games. Like, she's played Spiritfarer and Control, and a variety of other things that I'm blanking on the names of now. What Remains of Edith Finch. We've all gone to the Rapture, right? But I know she loves narrative. And so I recommended this almost immediately after finishing it, because I also know that my spouse has suffered from burnout. And so I think there's like what Dave was saying, I think it's both. And there's the kind of person that I think we all know who is an artistic person who maybe doesn't play video games, but could find something in this. And the controls, I think, are simple enough that like you can suss them out. And because there's no deadlines or like rush.
Yeah, no fail states.
There's no fail states. This is also why I would recommend it as like, early gamers' first game, right? Someone who doesn't have a ton of video game experience. But I really think anyone could find something in this. I think, unless you don't like narrative-driven games with messages, which I don't know anyone who's like that. But if you don't, that's totally legit.
I don't think they're here at an hour and 20 minutes into my show if they don't like those kind of games and don't want to hear about it. Yeah,
that's true. But like, that's the only person I could think of not recommending this game to, right? If you only like playing arcadey games, this is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
But I think any other person who plays video games or even doesn't can find something in this game.
Yeah. I think that if you're a gameplay first and like super heavy in that direction, like I think this game might put you off, but I also think this game is really smart about the type of game that it is. Like, I don't know if this was the goal at the beginning, but at the end, it sure feels like this game is a bit of a meta commentary on cozy farming games.
Yeah.
And I think that, so like the type of person who plays a lot of those might find this interesting about how someone has a very different take about nominally making the same kind of game, but doing it in a completely different way with completely different design goals. And so I think it's really smart and well done in that way. It's just like, there's some, we didn't talk about it, but like there's a system of how you deal with all your stuff in your pockets. And I don't think that that's very well implemented. It's kind of frustrating and it doesn't even count. Like you can get around it in weird ways that don't seem to make sense. But like that type of stuff isn't the point. So even for the gameplay first people, you're not doing the quote, the main gameplay mechanics all the time. There's a lot more downtime, a lot more running around, a lot more talking to people in here. And so obviously, I think that people who have been through burnout or are currently working really hard on something, or like I said before, you don't have to be someone who creates something to get on with this. You can just be, maybe you worked hard to get where you are in your career and you still work really hard. I think that this game's all about that. And like, it's not gonna fix you, but it will make you reflect a lot. And it made me reflect on how much work I do and my mindset kind of with Tales from the Backlog. It also made me think about my habits as a gamer and the type of mindset I find myself in, where sometimes it's like, woo, I've been playing this game for a while. Wonder how much longer it is. Like, I wish I didn't do that shit. Yeah. And Wanderstop made me think about that. So I can't really think of anyone I wouldn't recommend play this. And it is a game that, like, even if someone doesn't play cozy farming games, quote unquote, I would recommend this without hesitation, because I just think that what the game is actually about will resonate with, most people. So yeah, it's a really, really good game, and it's going to be high up on my list of what my best games of 2025. Like when I think about the act of playing Wanderstop, I'm not gonna like think back to like, wow, this was an amazing moment of planting trees or whatever. But no game that I played this year has made me like set my controller down after I played and like put my hands up on my head like, Jesus, man. Like, it's one of those games. Daryl talks games, talks about the man games where you just sit back, you're like, man, this is one of those games. So easy recommendation. Yeah. Okay, so It's time for our housekeeping before spoilers. And we always start by talking about the projects that the guests do. And as I said at the top, we are all very busy people with lots of things that we make or are participating in, etc. So, Danny, again, I will throw to you first. You do a lot of stuff. Please tell people about what you do and where they can find you.
Sure thing. So I stream on Twitch Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at CGDannyB. We typically play all sorts of indie games. We'll have community nights where you play things like Marbles or a lot of Marvel Rivals these days. I just hit my 700-hour mark. I'm a monster. But aside from that, I host Playlog Podcast with my buddy Topher. That comes out every Thursday. As of recording this, we're dropping our 1-year anniversary episode, which is wild to me because I've been getting my PAX pictures. I'm like, shit, am I missing PAX? No, it's May this year. Oh, God, timelines are weird. But yeah, we have a whole episode. We're just reflecting on like when the podcast started. Topher had like just quit content creation as I was like, hey, before you go, you want to do a podcast? Like, so like we have a whole discussion about like how this started, you know, where it came from. And then of course I make content on YouTube where I'll typically do here games coming out this month. I love to do coverage on here's 5 games that play like Hades or like Doom, or just trying to give more people games to play when they're just like, there's nothing out here. I'm like, oh, there's so much. And if you like this, here's like a list of things that you should totally try because it's similar. So yeah, if you want any recommendations, I'm the place to be. So get over here.
Yeah, really good stuff. The podcast is good. I enjoy the discussion on the show. Just very smart, but also, I mean, it's fun, but like, I don't, at this point, I don't really listen to podcasts if they don't have something intelligent to say. It's not why I'm listening to podcasts. But I enjoy the show that you do, and Topher's great too. So I'll do the recommendation there. And I haven't been in there in a while, but Danny's Twitch streams are fun. I've just been not hanging out on Twitch a whole lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. It's like finish playing games, then go on Twitch, watch other people play games. But if you do pick one person, pick Danny. It's a good time.
Thank you.
So.
Oh, and because she'll be mad at me for not mentioning it, I also have joined a lot of TTRPG streams recently, and I'm currently a part of Fallout 313. Sunday nights we are playing in the Modifius Fallout RPG system. I'm playing Finn, who is a super intelligent super mutant who's just like, I don't like to beat people up. I just like flowers, which was great when I had to do the Boro cosplay and the Finn stuff. I got so many flowers.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
Yes, it is run by the lovely and beautiful LB Hackamup. She's been a great overseer / DM so far. We're halfway through the series right now, but they're also on YouTube. So please check out that because it's a great time and I'm having a blast.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure to put, as always, links down in the show notes to everything that you're doing. And there will be a lot more links down there. Not as many as there used to be, but there will be more links because Matt is also a very busy person. So Matt, please tell people about what you do and where people can find you.
I'm just glad Danny went first because my pitch is usually so long-winded. And I was like, it's not just me. That's good.
Oh, dude, let's go. We got the list.
There's the reason why company. You two are the guests on the Wanderstop episode.
Hey.
So yeah, as Dave said before, I host 2 podcasts. Both have amazing co-hosts. I do the Fun and Games podcast with the incredible Jeff Moonen. The main show is topic-based, so we'll talk about certain genre of game, console retrospectives. We'll talk about immersive sims or emergent gameplay or signposting in games. Is grinding good in video games? Or sometimes we'll have a guest, like we've had Yuri Lowenthal on, not once, but twice. He agreed to come back. Don't know why, but I'm grateful for it. And we've had folks like Grant Kirkhope. We've had all sorts of different folks within the games industry, community managers, developers, all sorts of folks. And it's really just a celebration of games. And Jeff likes to say and coin the phrase, every video game is somebody's favorite, and we just want to talk about them. And to that end, the sub-series we have within the feed is called Side Quests. I created it, I produce and edit it, and it is a different host every episode talking about a game they love and why they love it. We're somewhere around 360-something episodes as of when recording. We'll be well past that by the time this... Well, actually, no, this is coming out not long after we're recording.
This is a rare, timely episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I can't remember all the episodes everyone's done. Danny has done Moonlighter and is going to do another game. Dave has done 7 episodes, I think.
I've done guessing. A lot. Yeah.
You've done a lot.
I gotta catch up.
I'm
More
always
recently,
talking.
you've done Rain World, which you were really excited about, and
Ooh.
Pathologic 2.
Mhm.
But Dave's done a ton of games from indie to AAA, and it's really a good time and an excuse to give folks an opportunity to just unabashedly talk about something they love. I don't know if you've realized, but there's a bit of judgment on the internet, and so I just wanted to create a safe space for people to gush about the games they love and not get accused of getting money on the side for reviewing a game, which totally actually happens and is not just a myth. But to that end, also, I do a great podcast with the incredible Frankie Bradley Lestrange. It's called Reignite. It started as a Mass Effect play-along podcast. We finished the original trilogy, then moved on to Andromeda, and now we're doing the Dragon Age franchise. We're currently in Dragon Age 2. And the thought behind the show was, what if we were the main character and made decisions as the main character, as if we were in their shoes? And so with Commander Shepard making choices in those heated moments as if we would, and more importantly, which aliens we'd smooch, because that is an important question to ask as well. It's been a lot of fun. We were relevant last year for the first time in a long time because we were doing a Dragon Age podcast as a new Dragon Age game was coming out. We are nowhere near covering it, but it's there and we'll get there eventually. And so if you like play along podcasts that are also just very queer and sex positive, I cannot recommend our show enough. Besides that, I am also a part-time DJ sometimes. I yell about the Yakuza series on the internet. You can find everything that I do at djstormageddon.com. It has both of my podcasts, the Patreon for fun and games, my merch store, my Twitch page, which I'm hoping to use a little more this year, and a bunch of other stuff. So if you want to go check out that stuff, you can go there. That's the best place.
There we go. A lot of stuff. And I think, Fun and Games is the one that if people are here and they want to hear like topic discussions, if people are mad at me because I haven't done a topic discussion in a very long time, go to Fun and Games, topic discussions all the time. And it's good stuff. You and Jeff are great together. And then the guests that you have are also awesome. And then Side Quest is awesome. Like you said, just very positive. Someone talk about a game they love. They're short. They're like, 20-minute max most of the time. So it's a good, throw one on the drive to work and just listen to someone be like, this is why I love Rain World. It's me. I'm someone. So yeah, good stuff. And then I keep telling you this, when I go back and replay the Mass Effect trilogy, Reignite will be my companion along the way. So yeah. All right. Well, like I said, down in the show notes, there will be links to everything that Danny and Matt are doing out there. I gave my pitch for myself at the top of the show, but just to reiterate, Patreon is the best place to support if you're able to. However, if you're not able to, that's perfectly fine because you can do other things like telling a friend that you enjoy a podcast, or sharing the YouTube channel now that I'm making videos, including like the first one I did was a preview for Wanderstop here. And also the Discord server, just a quick plug for that. I think it's a great place to hop in and chat about video games with other people who are enthusiasts and love to talk about them. So there's an invite link down in the show notes as well. So you have a lot to look through as the music is playing us through the spoiler break here. You can go find some new shows, some new streams, all kinds of cool stuff. But that is the cue. We're going to take a music break. And when we come back, it will be full spoiler time for Wanderstop. All right, before we get to spoilers for Wanderstop, I want to take a second and thank the wonderful patrons who help support the show. Big thank you to Chris Nelson, the Top 3 Podcast crew, Zulgeek, Chris Copleen, Eric Guess, Rick Firestone, Nick Fakori, Jill, Soccer, Cupcake, Kyle, Christian S., Matt aka Stormageddon, JD, Doug Leaf, Jason Emery, Brian Skirsha, Jenny E., Marcus O'Neill, Stefan, Drellish, Rob Smith, Rigamort, Silcanet, Ashton Ruby, Levi, Offshore Meteor, and many more. Thank you all for your support. It means the world to me, and it helps me know that I'm doing good work here, and I'm glad that you feel the same way. So thank you again. If anyone else would like to join them, once again, you can do so at patreon.com/realdavejackson. With that being said, we're on to full spoiler time for Wanderstop. All right, we are back, and it's full spoiler time for Wanderstop. And as usual, we are not going to walk through in a chronological order, so anything is fair game as far as spoilers go, starting right now. So please go play the game if you're concerned about being spoiled. So, speaking of spoilers, there are certain points in the game where after you have fulfilled however many orders that the NPCs have during that section, they will stop talking to you. They will stop acknowledging you. I think they might turn to you if you like click the talk to button, but they will just do ... and not have anything to say. They don't respond to Alta. And this is where Boro activates this shrine that's outside the shop. You go out there, you sit down, you meditate in front of the shrine, and then you get a cutscene that goes into Alta's kind of progress in her mental story. And then when you wake up, the clearing has changed. That's when the colors change, new customers will come, etc. I was kind of wondering, why do the customers stop talking to you at a certain point? Why is it such a harsh cutoff to your interaction with them? Because we were just talking beforehand. Someone said, well, one of the reasons might be that like these are transient, you cross paths for a moment and then they're gone. But they could have just taken their tea and left and, never come back, which doesn't happen often. Usually what happens is they stop talking to you and they stop acknowledging you. So I was just wondering, like, what do we think about this? Because they only really talk about this late in the game. Nana talks about it. She says it's our own doing why they stopped talking to us. So, yeah. Any thoughts about that?
I think I brought up earlier, right? So after you complete this, the first season and you come back and she's like, well, where'd everybody go? What happened? Boro hits you with this, like, people have paths and sometimes those paths don't go the same way, right? So like, you might you're not going to see that person ever again. And I think it happens a lot with people, right? There's going to be the last time I see someone for the rest of my life. Though these aren't as cut and dry as they would be in reality, I think there's those moments, right? Of like, when would I never see Gerald again? When would I never see the cool bird guy with the jester hat ever again? Like, there's going to be these moments like that. They're done. They're gone. And though I think these come with a more like awkward structure, I think by intent, I could also see it being Alta almost like checking out of people's lives in the way of like, there's one moment where she talks about like rivalries. Like, do I have a rival? I guess everybody I fight is a rival. But like in that headspace, is everyone that pisses her off a rival? Is because the demon hunter didn't want tea in the first place? Are you now my rival? So I found a reason to cut you off at some point. And in them no longer being able to speak, is that Alta putting up a wall of like, no, they are not in my life anymore. But again, correct or what Alta wants to be the correct Alta versus what Alta is. Where does that line draw where she wants to keep talking, but also doesn't want to keep talking,
Yeah, I think that I think you're onto something there where Alta doesn't want to talk to any of these people when it first starts. And so, I mean, I can identify with that. Like, if I'm in a situation where I have to go talk to somebody, like I'm talking in my real life, and I do what is required of the interaction. And then there's a point I hit, even in like social situations, there's a point I hit where I'm like, I don't want to talk to this person again. I'm going to look for the first opportunity I have to get the fuck out of here and go somewhere else. Or like if it's, maybe it's a work related thing, is like, oh, well, our purpose here is done. I'm not going to stay here and make small talk. I'm going back to my office. So it could be something like that. Cause like you said, Alta doesn't want to talk to these people in the first place.
Yeah.
She might put up with it for a while. And then maybe a switch gets flipped. It doesn't answer why they stop talking to you,
sure,
but it may be a perception thing. I don't know.
I mean, Boro also says that this grove kind of has a mind of its own, and people only come back to it for as long as they need to. Like, it doesn't fix them per se. And so that, I think, could be the same for these NPCs. They're only there as long as they need to be useful to Alta's growth or their own. Because I think also the grove seems to pick like a protagonist, essentially, like a focal point. And then there are other people who pass through, but Boro makes it pretty clear there have been other people like Alta who've come through and needed the time, and the grove kind of accommodates. So I think it's part of that. It's funny to me how Alta kind of freaks out the first time it happens to Geralt. Like, she thinks she did something wrong, or because Geralt's cursed and his leg is on fire the whole time.
Right.
Like, she thinks it's like a progression of that, and then it just becomes this kind of thing that happens. And I didn't really think big picture. I did think at one point, here's the Davey twist. Here's the thing. Something's going to jump out of the wall now. But that never happens. It's just kind of part of this world, but it does keep happening. And most of the time it feels like it almost happens before you're ready, which I think is interesting also.
Yeah. There's a theory I have about this, that it's possible that this clearing is in Alta's head at some point. And there's two things. So Nana says, me and Boro don't play by the rules you've been making. So like, she and Boro kind of exist outside of this whole thing. You kind of got like this cryptid energy from Boro. Like, he's always been here in this clearing, you know? But I think, and it might just be I'm looking at this thing wrong. If you remember at the end when Alta and Boro were sitting on that bench and they're looking out over a clearing, is it the same clearing? Because it's empty. There's no tea shop in there. So if Alta has made the progress that she feels like needs to have made, and she's ready to move on from this, if this is all in her head, and these side characters do kind of represent roadblocks and challenges and stumbles along the way, her story is like the bigger things along the way, but the characters represent little other things, I feel like. So once the lesson has been given, those characters don't serve Alta a purpose anymore. So if this is all in Alta's head, that explains why they have nothing left to offer for her, and that's why they stopped talking to her. That would be my... I'm not saying like this is what I think this game is, but if I'm like trying to connect dots, that does make enough sense to me.
Yeah, I can see that totally. It's funny. I expected to come out of this game with a revelation and like, that's the big picture, but it doesn't do that. And I'm grateful it doesn't.
The bunch of other moments. Build.
There are impactful moments like that in the interludes, but the ending is just this kind of, it just ends. It just kind of ends. Like, it's a release. And so to that end, I think if it's in Alta's mind, that's not what we're meant to focus on. What we're meant to focus on is Alta's journey and her healing, not necessarily what the cause of all, like what shape it takes. It's just the journey, basically.
Yeah, whether it's all in Alta's head or whether she did actually go to a magical forest clearing with a magical tea shop and a barista who's always been there, the progress and the journey she goes on is still the same. It doesn't matter what actually, quote, really happened, right? So let's talk about what happens when you rest at those shrines and kind of bring on those state changes. You have these cutscenes that play out in the meantime. One of them is Alta remembering ? That she found Master Winters, but actually ended up attacking Master Winters when she said Alta wasn't ready. And all throughout these cutscenes, there is this other character. It's like this golden looking apparition ghost of Alta that kind of like takes over situations. So in that place with Master Winters, it's this like other Alta that says, you know what, fuck this, I'll handle this, and makes Alta attack Master Winters. And there's a bunch of conversations that go on through the game where Alta is kind of losing these fights against this other version of herself. Like, you can tell she's trying to take the advice that's given to her. She's trying to take a break. She's trying not to rush back into fighting too soon. But it feels like this other version of her is like her idealized self, that when given the situation, the version of her that thinks they're still the same is like, yeah, well, we'll take matters into our own hands. Everything's cool. We're still on top. And it doesn't matter what Alta's more rational side says, because that other side always wins in most of these. And that feels very real to me, because you can go through and try and better yourself, and like those things that got you to the point where you are, whatever that is, will probably still win out a lot of times over your better judgment, we'll say. I'll use the example of I lost a lot of weight a couple years ago. I went on a very strict diet for a year and a half, and I lost about 100 pounds total. And there were many, many failed diets before that, where that side of me that's like, fuck it. Like, this is hard. Let's just do what we're comfortable with, what we think that, we're used to doing. And it would win over my rational side that said, no, like getting like 18 chicken fingers is not the best thing to do right now. And that other side of you wins. In Alta's case, it's like who she wants to be. She wants to get back to being that person. But that idealized version is like taking her down the wrong path to get to that point. And so I thought this storyline, it goes through the whole game, was really good, and what this other character represents.
Yeah, when she stabs, when this voice helps push her to stab Master Winters, I audibly gasped. Like, I was in shock. And like the narrative, it kind of insisting that the reason Alta can't remember what happened is because she blocked that out. It was a traumatic moment that she forgot, and running through the forest made her remember that that's actually how she ended up here. She did that and then didn't want to remember it, because all this time you keep saying to yourself, I need to find Master Winters, but it turned out you already did. And I think it's really interesting on some level. I also, like, as far as that voice, like for me, often that voice was self-deprecating, right? Like convincing me my friends don't really like me, convincing me that I'm a burden, and convincing me that I have to do this work. It's the only way I can connect to people. People don't actually care about me. They care about the things I do or the stuff that I have. Like, and I think what's really interesting about all of these narratives too, because the fourth meditation, when we see Monster's glowing version, it's this acknowledging this thing young and going, and she talks to the apparition. If you control her all the time now, that's all she'll ever know. It has to be a balance. And I think seeing it in someone else. And I also have this theory that like Monster and Nana are like a young and older version of her, because they both have markings on their arms.
Okay.
But
cool.
But like, either way, it's interesting that this whole narrative is really not meant to be like this voice is bad or that this action is bad. It's that it's a thing that exists. You need to learn to understand it and exist with it. It's very similar to the Celeste narrative of like, you're not supposed to get rid of Battleline. You need to learn to coexist with Battleline.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of, we're in a spoiler section, but I basically surmised the plot of all of Celeste. But Celeste is the journey, trust me. But anyway, but like, it's like what I love about this kind of apparition in this narrative arc is like, it's showing you that this destructive side is part of you. What are you going to do about it? Don't just shut it out. How will you use it, but also learn from it and maybe change it or take control of it or whatever? And it's there's no simple answer through these meditations either, which I like. It's just showing us, the point of them is for us to see who Alta is, and what Alta's done, not solve Alta, which I think is also interesting.
You mentioned, you're like, there's not an easy answer. I'm like, right. Every time I'm going through, I'm like, how many layers deep is this? Or what is this implying, where it's like, this isn't literal. This is a personification of this and this, right? So when we get to the Master Winters moment, I'm like, okay, we know glowing Alta is like the perfect form I want to be. This is what is making the right decisions in this type of Alta's head, right? But I'm like, the Master Winters isn't the literal person, right? This is a blockade of the things I need to get to, and finding her is that blockade. And I was waiting for those pieces to build something different where I'm like, okay, it wasn't literal. I'm like, no, shit, it was literal. No, she did that. He's like, no, okay, never mind. I was really hoping that was not a real thing, because from the get-go, right, where they're like, the goal is to find Master Winters, I was dead set. I'm like, she's going to be a guest at the tea shop. Like, she's going to show up and be like, oh my God, I found the person I've been looking for this entire time. And then going into, like chapter 2, immediately being like, nope, well, that's not happening now because, Alta did this. I enjoyed watching this. Enjoy is the wrong word. But like fell into watching this battle between like who I want to be and who I am and should be, back and forth with this golden Alta. After each chapter, which was such a like, oh, I want to see you succeed, Alta. And again, playing at the same time as playing Celeste with Battle Line. Like, they are so similar, but I feel like they both almost feel like they treat each other differently in the end. Just being like, Madeline felt so much like, all right, we got it. Come on. I know you're kind of a pain in my ass, but let's rock with it. And then with my ending of Wanderstop, it felt more like you are a nuisance. I have to deal with you, but like, okay, come on. Yeah. And then finding peace in it again through Monster and being like, I know you're going through it. If you power through, I'll power through. So it felt like same narrative, different tone, I suppose, and how those both were relayed. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a good dynamic where in both cases, they realize, like Matt said, you don't kill that part of you. It's not going to disappear. You have to learn to live with it. And Alta does that in a different way. It is like that thing kind of reminds me of that inertia that your old lifestyle had. If you're going through that for so long, especially in Alta's case, being, a competitor, an athlete, a warrior, it's just nonstop. And then it's not something that you can just stop. That part of you that says, we can fix this with another day of hard training, it doesn't go away, regardless of regardless of if Alta has actually internalized what Boro's been saying, or, any NPCs or something like that, like taking lessons from who they are and what their storylines represent. You still can't completely shut off that side of you that says, we can fix this. We can't stop. Stopping is the worst thing we can do, because something terrible will happen if we stop. We just have to keep going and stay the course, and everything will be fine. And this, you can get over this. The way you get over this is by working harder, which might be the case for some roadblocks along your way, but not when you're at the point that Alta is at. Going harder is just going to make things worse, but that part inside of you will never shut up about like how you can't stop, because what happens if you stop? It's an unknown, whether you enjoy it or not. Like, Alta clearly enjoys what she thinks being a warrior makes her. This is another theme I didn't mention earlier, but like, Alta's whole identity as a person is tied up in being a warrior and being at the top. And this game really feels like, also it's speaking to people who very heavily identify as something, whether it's a creator or whether it's what your career is. I bet you if you asked a professional athlete, like, who are you? The first thing they would say is, I'm a football player, or something like that's the identity. Yeah. And you can't get to those levels of success without being so invested that I don't think. And so when that's taken away from Alta, she has this crisis, like, what am I if I'm not a warrior? I don't have anything else. And so that part of you that's saying, you just keep going, you keep being a warrior, you never let that go. I think that's part of it too, because that unknown, like, if I'm not a warrior, then I am nothing. And that's not a place that you want to be, right? Yeah. Really smart.
Yeah. I mean, we are trained on some level to be the things we consume, right? We all wear video game themed t-shirts or, skeet about the game we've beaten. And I do it all the time. And there's this level of like, we have to remember that we exist outside of that stuff, but also it's why in some spaces I just promote my work, and in other spaces I'm more myself, right? It's where you feel comfortable letting that guard down, because it's a defense mechanism too.
Yeah.
If I'm just sharing my podcast and the work I made, people can hate that, but not me necessarily, right? Like I'm putting that in front of me almost like a shield a little bit. And there has to be a part of you that exists without that stuff, right? Because you
Yeah.
are more than the things you consume or create. But sometimes it's hard to see that. And I feel like this apparition version is like the truest quote unquote form of Alta as she sees it, because no one
Yeah.
else can see her either. Only she
Well,
can see her.
that could be the way other people see her too, because
Right.
other people who know her, I get the feeling that very few people know who Alta truly is inside, but she's a famous warrior. Everyone knows her as the champion of the arena. And so that's what there's that pressure we put on ourselves in that self-identification of like, this is what I am. I am a podcaster. I am a video games critic. I don't really tie my self-worth into my career, which I think is a nice thing about myself. But
Yeah.
I was a teacher, and I felt more of a connection between that identity and myself when I was a full-time teacher. But other people who don't know me, and including people who are listening to this show, they may think Dave Jackson is a podcaster. That's all I know about him. And that's who he is. And so that version of Alta that is in there, like you said, representing who she sees herself, that's probably what other people see her as too. And there's at least one NPC that really plays into how Alta wants people to continue to see her that way. She's not okay with people seeing her in a moment of weakness or anything less than being the champion of the arena. I think she's happy with the fact that this clearing seems pretty anonymous until someone comes in who knows her from, quote, real life, right? So there's a lot that we tie into our identities, and then the way other people see us can tie into that too. It can reinforce, my primary identity is a podcaster or a games critic or however you see me. And Alta definitely deals with that too. Want to talk about some of those NPCs that tie into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great kind of dive into Ren, the warrior character we meet.
Yeah.
Because for me, the thing that's interesting about Ren is that he immediately recognizes Alta as a warrior and celebrates her. Oh my God, it's you. I'm such a big fan. I became a warrior because you became a warrior. And they talk a little bit and reminisce a little bit, but then at one point he's like she tells him the truth, her story, and he goes, well, that can't be. You're a warrior. Well, I'll just help you. We'll figure it out. And he's really insistent. And at one point, Alta just goes, I can't. I don't want to do that. Like, I do want to do it, but like, I'm not that person right now. I'm trying to get better, but I'm not that person right now. And Ren doesn't understand. And not only is it a like fan, like a parasocial dynamic, but it's also a mask to femme dynamic. And the way he's kind of all over her a little bit, and she eventually starts to retreat because she becomes overwhelmed, is also a thing that I took note of, and is a very real thing that a lot of people experience. And I think it was one of the characters that bristled me the most, because I've not been in that exact situation, but I've been in situations where people are over emphatic and it makes you uncomfortable and you don't know what to say because you don't want to upset them, because if you consider yourself a good person, you want to be nice and be nice to everyone, and they're not hurting you physically per se in that moment, but they are doing things to make you uncomfortable. And it's just this experience and dialogue and progression until he loses his damn arm trying to show her up. Like, it's just that arc is so almost predictable, but in a really well written way that like immediately got a visceral reaction out of me and made my skin crawl almost a little bit.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioning, right? Like it feeling so predictable because it does. But in this game where there is this like, is this the last time I'm speaking to this person? Like I think Gerald has a moment, right? And we kind of skipped over, we can bring back Gerald. However, he's like, all right, I'm gonna go out to the forest, which like, oh, that might be the last time, but he comes back. He's like, hey, welcome back, Gerald. We're doing a new thing for you. Like Ren has cutscenes. Like a lot of the NPCs don't have those. Like where Ren is like, hey, I see you were getting better. I think we got some of this medicine. Let's spar, right? And you have the little thing in the field. And he's like, all right, obviously you're not the person that I thought you were. I wish you were that person. I wish you would see that you are still that person. I'm going to bounce. So I'm like, that's it. That's the end of my Ren story. Ren has like, is disappointed in me. I'm not the don't meet your heroes type moment with Ren, right? And I have the clip of me, I'm going ham, putting in plants, I'm watering things. And then Ren walks up missing an arm. And there's just this audible gasp of me like, oh, fuck. Like what happened? Because like Ren visually is so cool. I'm like, he's a dope character. Seeing him in that second season, like, oh, he's my favorite right now. But you have you see the parasocial, like the fan moment of like, oh, I get to meet Alta. This is really cool. Why aren't you as strong as I wish you were? Oh, we could fix this. I can fix you. Which I'm like, oh, well, that's not the direction I want to take this. And then, him coming back and just being like, yeah, I fucked up. Could I just get some more of that tea we talked about? And like, another one of those moments where I was like, just like I would for Boro, anytime something came up, I was like, I'm mad that Ren looked at me as Alta in such a way. But now I'm like, damn, he learned his lesson a little bit. Hold on, let me find you a tea. Let me make you feel better. And that was actually like the first tea that I had fucked up in the game. I forgot what the recipe was for like, I need this particular type of Himalayan mountain, something goat milk. I don't know what it was. But I was like, yeah, let me get this right. And when he just like looked at it and like, this doesn't taste right. I was like, hold on, is this another narrative beat? Is Ren broken? And I'm like, oh no, I literally fucked up the recipe. My bad. Let me go fix that. But like Ren is favorite, I feel like implies this like positivity that comes out of it, but I think is my most memorable experience with any of the NPCs. I thoroughly enjoyed the start, felt this hole or this punch in my gut halfway through. And then Ren kind of wraps up with like, I got to figure shit out. Can I leave my mask with your sword? And that's now this new set piece that sits in the clearing as a reminder of like who Ren was. And like, there's even more Amash comes in like, what's this? Can I keep the mask? Oh, this looks kind of stupid. Or whatever comment she makes about it as a kid. Ren definitely left the biggest impression on me from an NPC in this game. And I think with intention. But what a ride with Ren.
Yeah. It's everything that both of you have said, but it also, to me, represents someone who knew you in your old way, we'll say, who can't accept that you're trying to better yourself. And it may not even be through it's not bad intentions on Ren's case, but Ren cannot comprehend that Alta doesn't want to do this, or that Alta is taking a break. Like, it's not possible. And that kind of, it feels like if you are on what's in this case is going to be an extended journey of self-betterment, there are going to be people who don't understand what you're doing. And even if they have good intentions, are going to react in ways that are not helpful to you at all. And it also is one of the moments that shows, actually there's three things. It's one of the moments that shows that like Alta tries to spar with Ren and can't do it, even though you've been through one season and you had a bunch of, you thought you made a lot of progress. We're still not cured. And it shows you that like, recovering from this is not like we said, you took a long weekend vacation and now you're good again. The final thing, and this plays into the Zenith storyline as well, is Ren wants to go out into the forest to find some holy water that's going to fix Alta. And it's one of two or maybe more times when Alta is like, oh, we've got an easy fix. Hell yeah. Let's try and do the easy thing instead of like the work. And like I've talked before about the diet. I mean, there is no clearer analog to me than like, hey, try the keto diet. It's really easy to lose weight. All you do is eat bacon and you'll lose a bunch of weight. It's awesome. And that shit did not work for me. It was too good to be true almost, at least in the way that I approached it at the time. And Ren and then Zenith also, because Zenith is a god. They're both situations where Alta's like, oh, there's an easy way out. Let me try that. And both times it doesn't work, to kind of show you there is no easy way out of the situation that Alta is in, or whatever situation you want to draw parallels to in real life. It's just very smart. And you get these characters that seem, like I said, they seem goofy as hell on the surface, but the depth that your limited interactions with them go and the way they tie into Alta's journey is really, really good. And like, not that I forgot that Davey Wreden has extreme narrative chops, but this is the good shit right here, how all of this ties in.
Yeah, I mean, Zenith is my favorite character. And like Zenith, for those who may be here and haven't played the game, which why? Go play the game. But if you are, Zenith is this godly figure that shows up because these dorky little businessmen also show up, and she's because we don't really have a gender for Zenith. Yeah. They are obsessed with these businessmen, and they're like, look at them. They're great. Don't you see how great they are?
Yeah.
And like, this is the part that I went, this is about game development. We have these corporate businessmen who just want one thing and just want to show you this presentation they made. They are very specific.
By the way, their presentations are very funny.
It's so good.
They're so good.
Just taking the absolute piss out of PowerPoint presentations. Like, good for them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Very good. But like, it's this art versus corporatizing. And like, I definitely see the video game dev here. And Zenith's whole narrative is originally they're there and they're like, oh, well, I'm a godly being. I'll help you, Alta. And you try a couple of times and it doesn't seem to really work. But Zenith is always up for trying. But after the second try, Zenith starts to change. Zenith stops flying. Their hair is reined in. Now they have a little weird tie. And you see over time, Zenith conforms to these businessmen. This art, this artistic expression, this unique thing starts to conform to the thing they love that happens to be this boring, straight-laced, corporate nothing. And it crushes Alta by the end. And Alta's frustrated because she was like, you were my quick fix. What happened? To the point where the final conversation you have with what was Zenith, they look like one of the other businessmen. They have like kind of glowing green hair, but beyond that, they look identical and eventually and they don't remember you. So it also has this kind of parallel to like assimilation in the corporate. Like, if you've ever been someone who was artistic, who works in an office and can't express yourself artistically in that office space, it can feel this kind of oppressive conformity that feels pointless and can seem pointless. And like, I love this whole section. Like, it was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. Also, like, Zenith offers Alta the quick fix, basically, I'm a spirit of the forest, I can heal you, and it doesn't work. And after that, Zenith, maybe because they're going through the change, but also maybe just in a moment of wisdom, is just kind of like, well, here's some more practical advice for how to work through this. And Alta is not having it because she saw the way out. She saw the easy way and it didn't work. And when it shifts to like, no, I'm on Boro's side here. We need to take this slow and all these practical things. Alta's like, but what about the miracle? Can I have the miracle, please? And that, I mean, again, extremely real to me. Danny, what did you think of the Zenith storyline here?
Yeah, Zenith, in the early part of the episode, Zenith is when I'm like, holy fuck, you're so cool, right? And Zenith is so whimsical when you meet them. And they're just like, oh my God, I would love, like, I've discovered this thing in your life. Or and another one of those characters, I just like voiced every line they said. And like, Zenith has this echo to themselves, right? Where like, they either repeat themselves or like use a synonym for a word that they just said, which is very this like ominous, like ethereal thing. I'm like, oh, this is so awesome, right? And watching that deteriorate step after step, where you're like, let me get this thing for Zenith, or let me go look at this guy's presentation, or get this guy a drink, and seeing Zenith conform, I'm like, I'm losing my baby. I'm losing what was so special about, again, like, one of the most unique characters in here, where we have so many humanoids or so many just like people. And then you're like, this is just a god, an entity of who knows what. Yeah, seeing right the moment they introduce you to coffee, these people are like, I want coffee. We don't have that here.
So Zenith just creates it out of nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like, I think that sets up Ulta for this moment of like, oh, you fixed one problem. Can you fix, like, I'm confident you can fix the other. Like, you could just do that. And like, another moment of like, this is the first time experiencing what's going to happen. Where's that left turn going to come in? Where I'm like, this is what it is. And Zenith goes to Ulta and they're like, there's not human words to explain to you what this is. Let me try and show you. And you get this like Windows 95 screensaver moment of like colors and lights and space. And I'm like, can Danny figure out what this means? Is there something to it? And then I'm like, can I get it again? And they show it again. I'm like, now it's a bunch of lights. I don't think, but like, maybe if I keep doing this stuff, right? And then eventually Zenith is like, I can meet you in the forest. We'll go do the thing together, right? Yeah. And like, they don't show up. And you come back and now you mentioned they like look more and more like the businessman every time. And it was the thing. I'm like, I know you're not going to be able to talk to me any second, but I just need like one more sentence of you explaining something, not even about me anymore. I don't even care about like what we're trying to fix for Ulta. Like, I want to know if you're good. And yeah, making that the connection to game development. I'm always singing the praises of indies because they are so obviously a lot more work. The amount of indie developers who had to put their mortgages and everything else just to make like a passion project, but it's those passion projects that feel so special. This is someone's narrative, their story, something they've been through, someone they know has been through. Like, there's so much love in indies, right? And seeing that narrative explained in a different way in an indie game where I'm like, God, they still know the pain. It still hurts so much. And I enjoyed seeing them being able to reflect that. And again, such a dope character that I hated. They just like took away from me and made a little scrub. I hated it. But yeah, again, right after Ren, like Zenith is so sick. And it hurt to watch them just fall into what they did.
Yeah. It's interesting how they tie in with the businessmen, and how like Zenith is this being of pure possibility. Zenith can be anything that they want to be. They chose to take this form and come into the clearing and try out tea because they're just curious, and whatever they want to be, they can be. Pure possibility. It's to me an analog to art and creation and creativity, and then how that shit dies in the boardroom a lot of times, and how Zenith becomes one of them and gets shoved into this box. And it's like they decide that they want to go, that they're interested in the businessmen. And that's why they want to, like, there's this irresistible draw to them that eventually corrupts them and turns them into one of the businessmen. But it definitely feels like a take on maybe where like the business world is where dreams go to die, depending on what you were dreaming of as a kid. You may not have dreamed of being a not nameless, but a fairly anonymous businessman who all they care about is getting their coffee so that they can do their presentation and not be bothered or something like that. But also how, creativity, when you have this many suits, and that's not to say there aren't, publishers or even entire AAA studios that really respect the creative vision of the people who work there. But we've heard enough stories of how demands from up top will just flatten out all the creative vision that people have for projects, even outside of games, right? You hear about it in the music industry. You hear about it everywhere, where when the suits and the money gets involved, those creative infinite possibilities become just like something else. And that's what happens with Zenith here. I had a different read on Zenith too, where just like Ren, so Ren was resistant to the changes Alta was going through. Now Alta is resistant initially, or we are going to be resistant to the changes that Zenith is going through in this storyline as well. And it ends with Alta not really intervening, and just kind of like, I think this is a bad idea, but this is the path that Zenith wants to follow. And I mean, it's not like a destructive path or something like that. Like, yeah, getting a job in the corporate world isn't the worst possible outcome. But it's maybe not what we want to see. Just like Ren seeing Alta not wanting to be the warrior, that's not what Ren wanted to see either. And Alta makes the decision that Ren couldn't make, which is to let Zenith be their own person, in quotes, because Zenith is a god, but to let Zenith be their own individual and follow the path that they want to follow. And this is very late in the game, so it feels like a lesson that Alta's learned that she can then maybe apply to herself, which is going to let her finish this, or not finish, but, get to the end of where this game's story ends. I think that it's a necessary step that Alta has to take. If she wants other people to do this for her, she needs to be able to do this for other people as well.
Yeah, very basically learn by doing, right? Acceptance. Yeah. If you accept others, they'll accept you, which I'm not naive to believe that's always true. But in this moment, it's like it's learning to love. Someone can't love you if you can't learn to love yourself. It's that kind of thing also, right? Like acceptance comes from within as well as outward.
I know that the both of you wanted to talk about Gerald, so let's bring up Gerald here. For people who didn't play, Gerald is a guy cosplaying as a knight because he wants to impress his son, and his entire reason for being and doing anything that he does is because he wants his son to think that he's cool. And this results in him getting cursed in the forest and losing his faculties at the end of it because the curse has progressed to such a degree. And then he disappears and we never see what happens to him. So what did you all like about Gerald's story?
I loved his design first. He's wearing a suit of armor with a necktie and a collar over it. And just looks, looks goofy as shit. Looks like the typical dad trying to impress their son by being cool. I love his story because there's an ignorance in it that I recognize, right? This foolishness, right, that we all have when we're younger or when we want to impress someone. The things you would do both in love and in friendship to impress other people that could be considered ridiculous or over the top. And there's I recognized a much younger energy in Gerald that I definitely don't have anymore, of just kind of chaos and doing what's best and living the joy of life to impress those around you, which I really liked. I couldn't help but smile every time I read Gerald's dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. There was this boisterous guy of I want to be a knight. I want to be cool for my son. But there was such these light switch moments, right? Where he's like, yes, I'm on a knight's quest. You want to look at this picture of my son? I made him a bunch of sweaters so it has a picture of my face so we can always remember what his dad looks like. And then sorry, I'm a knight. And seeing his not even moments of weakness, just the moments of hold on, I get to talk about my son, this child that I love so much that I just want him to thinks that I'm cool, right? The teenage son is like, Dad, you're being such a dork. And there's even dialogue options where Alt's gonna be like, I don't know if it's gonna make your son think you're cool, or hey, how could he not think you're cool after this? Whether those are sarcastic or not. Gerald is, I think, the first character that gives you a weird interaction as you're getting close to this the dot they can't speak anymore, where he does his foot's on fire. He's been cursed by a witch. I can fix it if I just do more push-ups or more sit-ups or, whichever one it is. And then one of his lines of dialogue after he gets his tea is just spitting out witchcraft lore and if this attacks and da-da-da. You're
oh, yeah.
All right, Gerald, something's wrong with you. And I think my next quest will be to fix you. And it's not. It is. That's the end. That's the last thing Gerald gets to say to you before, your ... Sort of. But then again, Bora hits you with the your paths are going to diverge. You're not going to see each other anymore. I'm they're going to prove Bora wrong, right? I'm going to get to season 4 and I'm going to see Gerald show back up and I'm going to get to see or Gerald's son's going to go up because that much crazy time has skipped, or I was so ready to see the continuation of this goofy man and how did it go on with the son? And you don't get to see it visually, but I think one of the last letters you receive when you're sending packages back is from Gerald. And I guess the perspective I took from it seems like he would have no idea who would have sent him that package. He's like, hey, I had a package. I kind of left it there for a reason. But thank you for sending it to me. Because of this, Like, by the way, I'm a cool knight. I got a cool son. I got to send you pictures of my son sometime. Like, it's a very like, oh, you, Gerald, I love your just blissfulness. Gerald's great. Yeah, Gerald's fantastic.
Yeah, he was, to me, he's the first one. I think he's the first NPC.
He's one of the first two. Him and the hunter are the first two.
Yeah. I guess depending which one, if you talk to the demon hunter fast enough, I think they do show up first, but I lingered and then spoke to Gerald first. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Gerald and the demon hunter both, but especially Gerald. No, actually it's both of them. I think they are more just like strange characters that they're presented to you early on where you and Alta both will be like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Basically.
I mean, Gerald's story has a bit more depth to it, I think, than the Demon Hunter's story. I didn't really jive with the Demon Hunter.
Me neither.
I don't really care about that character at all. But Gerald, it feels like it's a very relatable thing blown up to a caricature level of a parent of a teenager who desperately, like teenagers, they go through that phase where like your parents aren't cool anymore. And then like later on, hopefully you come back around to like your parents are probably pretty cool. But Gerald can't accept that, and he just goes to these caricature-ish levels to keep trying to impress his son, and all his son wants to do is kind of like get some space and try to be his own person for that time. And Gerald can't handle that, so he keeps going to more and more lengths. And there's that part where you can keep asking him to show you the photos, and it's another like real comedy thing where you could see them in like the board, like the meeting room, just like, all right, give me all the weird off the wall things that this guy can do to try and impress his son. And there's a lot of them too. And they're really funny. But yeah, a relatable character, but also one of the weirdest ones right off the bat. So that I think you can get that reaction that Alta would have where it's like, these are the people that I'm going to have to serve in this shop.
Right.
So that's Gerald. I think we already talked about Monster a little bit. I don't have a ton else to say. I mean, Monster is kind of like a mirror of Alta's issues too with the inner self. And then, Alta reaching the level of understanding and enlightenment that she has allows her to then help Monster's other self like be more accepting of how Monster's going to make mistakes and she's going to fuck things up. And you have to just let that happen sometimes, because if you try to intervene and be self-deprecating and stuff, you're just going to make things worse. And yeah, it ties in. It's like we said with Zenith and Ren's storylines, Alta can't take that big step herself if she's not able to see it in others and like kind of more internalize that lesson.
Well, it's also this thing that, at least I'll speak for myself, I'm much quicker to help someone else than myself.
Yeah, like, that's true. Yeah.
If I could see the exact thing I'm going through in someone else and cannot solve or set my brain straight, but see them and go, I can help. Here's what we can do. So we're going to do this. Oh, you can't talk to yourself that way. That's not nice. No, you got to be like absolutely ready to solve any problem like that for someone else before I will for myself. And I think these moments with Monster, Zenith, and several others are those moments to like allow Alta to see it in others before recognizing it in herself.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Also, I think this ties in on that point. I think that Alta's dad and Boro are very similar. And we get that backstory where Alta was very dismissive of her dad because he lacked ambition in the way that she saw him. Where in reality, it was probably more like he's just more of a carefree, easygoing type of guy. It just because you aren't driven to the maximum like Alta is doesn't mean that you're just floating in the wind with no purpose in life. Yeah. Alta's dad's purpose was probably to be a good father to Alta, and she just couldn't see that. And I mean, in the way that kids probably don't see the intentions that their parents have a lot of times,
right?
That go into the things that they do. But Alta meets a very similar character with Boro later. And so, like you said, kind of that seeing it in other people, like seeing the value in that kind of mindset that Boro has. Because I think Alta does eventually look up to Boro and really, really take stock in what Boro says.
Yeah.
Where her father probably said very similar things when she was younger, and she couldn't handle that was a way that someone lived, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another step of like something coming full circle there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I know I've had the case that since you were young, dad saying that like, you understand when you're older, you understand why I do the things that I do or say the things that I say. Right. And like, there's the age of like, no, I'm 15 and I still don't see what you're talking about. That was one of the dumbest things you could have said.
I'm 15.
Exactly. Yeah. And then even though like at this point, I'm like, I would still disagree with so many things that my father did, said, whatever. Like I constantly thought about that again with all of Alta's like tea moments, right? Because there's a lot that focus on her father and how she felt about her father. And there's one I can't quite remember, word for word, where I think she's talking to her mother about something that her father said, or vice versa. And there's a lot of these moments where I'm like, man, Danny understands what they're saying. How old's Alta? Did Danny reach adulthood? Does Danny understand now? Are we there? And yeah, with to bring it back to Monster, there's a lot of moments where Nana, right? Like she puts up shop and she's very vocal about how like, keep an eye on that kid. I don't know where her parents are, but like she's acting up. If we don't keep her in check, she's going to grow up wrong and da-da-da-da-da. And like, I was waiting for that reveal of like, what are Nana and Monster to each other? Where's this fall together? Right. And, I was like, she like the long lost grandma. I was like, I don't care about that kid, but I really care about the kid. I gotta keep it. That's why I set up shop. Well, I knew she was coming, or something to the effect. I don't think we get any kind of answer, maybe some presumptions, but yeah, we see that a lot of Alta's. Because Matt bringing up I see it in others. I help them with it, but over my head, I don't know I'm dealing with that problem. Right? I don't know how to fix it for myself. I just know how to fix it for others.
Yeah.
And especially with Monster, right? Because that is like the finale of it, of what Alta's been going through this entire time. And as we start to see it happen with Monster, who starts as just this jovial, like, hey, I'm here. And like, I want tea that tastes like dirt. I want to make sure that it's the grossest. I don't even like tea, but I want it to be gross.
Yeah.
And you have a moment later where she like asks for tea again, but like she never specified she wants dirt. I was like, let me make this without the dirt. And she loved it. I'm like, I don't know if I put the dirt in if she would have cared or not. But like, to me, that felt like, okay, that was a growth for Monster, because she saw like my big sister Alta type moment, and that was really cool. I think Monster's a great like finale type character for Alta.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, I think they picked really good characters in the points in the story where they are introduced. Zenith, the business people, and Monster are great for the ending because they represent lessons learned in various ways before you get to the ending. And speaking of the ending, let's talk about the ending. So, Boro says that kind of the forest clearing has kind of separated that ideal self from Alta right now. And when you leave, it will merge again. So it's going to be harder to resist those temptations to kind of go back to your old ways. But hopefully you've learned something along the way. But before you go, you have a moment with Boro where actually before you meditate, there's a moment where Boro says, there's no time pressure. Basically, go do whatever you want, even be bored. Being bored is a luxury. Why not allow yourself to be bored in this last moment? And I did take some extra time before that last meditation to just kind of take a few final laps around the clearing, cut a couple of thorns, sweep up some trash, pick up, if there's something there, pick it up, something like that. But you do the final meditation. Before they merge places, Alta asks her other self for trust, to basically trust me and what I've learned. It's going to be better for both of us, for us as a whole, if we take what we've learned here and kind of take that forward. We're not sure going forward if Alta gets better. We're not sure what happens. It ends after that meditation. She sits on the bench and you can talk to Boro. And we don't know what happens after this. What does happen is you have a choice at the end. I think it's a really interesting choice. It's so simple and it probably has no impact on the ending whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But you're sitting on the bench with Boro. Again, the clearing is empty. There's no tea shop there anymore, unless it's a different clearing. I'm not sure. Surely, I mean, it has like the paths going around the outside and everything.
Meant to be the same clearing,
yeah. So you have a choice of you can leave or you can ask Boro to stay on the bench for a couple more minutes. And I don't think it makes a difference at all, but it felt like a very important decision at the end here. I asked to stay for a couple more minutes and the credits rolled as Alta was sitting on the bench.
That's what I did as well. I asked to sit a little longer and saw the credits roll while we were on the bench.
I want to say I was just like, I think I'm good. I think I'm done. And I think we just get the empty bench.
Yep.
And then,
To me, it could show a couple of things. Matt and I's choice to stay there. It could show that Alta has learned and is not jumping at the chance to get out of there as soon as possible. Like Alta maybe has learned the value of sitting in silence for a couple of minutes. Or she might not feel ready and she might feel scared and she might feel like, can I just put this off for a couple more minutes and then I will take that step, but I'm not ready at this very moment. Both of those feel equally real to me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think as an anxious person, even when I push, like, it's that whole thing of like, is being brave is not the removal of fear. Bravery is acting in spite of it.
Yeah.
And the idea of like taking action, you're never not anxious. It's being productive is taking action in spite of that anxiety, still doing the thing, even though it makes you nervous.
Yeah.
And this choice feels that way to me of like, she's still a little nervous and she's going to do it. And I believe that she will, but she wants a few more minutes to sit in this moment. It also, I think, shows that like the lessons she's learned, right? Like it's okay to be bored. Let's be bored here for a minute together. I want to do that. I want to spend that time.
Yeah, I think as I was wrapping it up, right, and we had these conversations, and before you go to this final meditation, like Boro's like, can you make me just one cup of tea, no preference, whatever you want it to be,
yeah,
one last cup.
You roam around, and I sat there thinking like, what do I make Boro? Like, I was like, do I try the coffee? Boro doesn't like the coffee. Like, will I get like this super obscure like option? Like, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to pick that for Boro. So as I ended up picking the it's the chip. It's the first one you get. And then I think it was the Azzy fruit. Cause I'm like, oh, this is the one I gave to Gerald. Like these were my two favorites. So I just mixed those together, gave that to Boro. And I can't say I recall like a remarkable, like, oh, this was a great conversation to have on the way out the door. But yeah, I felt like that was my period for that story. Right. And there was the getting on the train to leave. I'll talk to you later. That as far as I can go before the door closes and it takes off, right? Of like that bench scene felt like that. Like I was already on the way out the door. The tea was the thanks for playing. And when the game and the options stick around or go, I'm like, I think it's time to go. Like I'm praying out to just a little bit of what Alta was doing next. But yeah, the lack of anything, knowing like, here's what Alta went back to do, or here's how her life improved, right? Still feels hollow, but like in a good way, I guess. Of like, I guess I can dream that the right things happen and the best things happen, but then it also is like, it feels like the whole time when Boro's like, the paths diverge, we're going to have this, like, that's where mine and Alta's paths diverged. I Alta gave me my ... on the way out the door. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
All right. Yes.
It's funny you mentioned the coffee, because that's what I gave Boro.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
My last drink was the coffee, and he laughed and went, this is very much an Alta thing, I asked for tea, and you're so full of surprises that you brought me something else, completely, entirely different. And it was a very sweet moment.
Yeah.
Dave, do you remember your final drink?
Yeah, it was one of the final drinks. It wasn't the one you give Zenith because that one was insane and I didn't want to make it again. But it was one of the final cups that a customer asked for that just sounded really good.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it was the one that was like mixes ice cream and breakfast cereal. Like I think that's what Monster wanted.
That was the one Monster
And I was
wanted.
like, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Like if there's any tea that I've made in this game that I want to try in real life, it's probably that one.
Yeah.
So that's what I gave to Boro. And Boro doesn't make a big deal about it. He's just like, that is a great cup of tea. Thank you very much. And then you can do it again if you want to.
Yeah.
But, at the end, we're left with that unknown. Is Alta going to be better? We have no idea how it goes. We can hope that if you've made it to the end of the story and you've been through what Alta's been through and learned the lessons that she seems to have learned, you hope that she's better prepared to take on the rest of her life with what she's learned. But she's not fixed. It's like the game is very clear that this game did not solve her problems. She's not going to be able to pick up a sword. And we don't know if she does want to pick up a sword. We don't know if she ever does again. And it got me thinking, like, so I had a bunch of these like meta moments with the game where, again, like I said, like Boro's talking to me here and telling me that it's okay to be bored. And if I have 10 minutes, I don't need to open up Resolve and edit something for 10 minutes. I can just chill for 10 minutes. And then I find myself at the end of the game really sitting and reflecting on those lessons. And like 2 days later, doing the same exact shit. It like mirrors the realness of how this game understands that journey. And like my quote problem of searching every 3 days how long Dragon Quest V is not a real problem like something that Alta is going through. But it's the same type of message that like you are maybe going a little bit too hard at this and the game is going to make me sit and reflect on it. When the game's over, I'm not fixed. I'm still maybe a little bit too lost in the sauce sometimes, but like the game making you think about this thing and having you reflect on how you go through that is really valuable. I think it's really, really valuable. And then especially, you know, I've heard anecdotally from people who did go through a severe burnout episode or something like that, that this game still hits the right notes at the end because they may not feel like they're recovered.
Yeah. I think every time that I've hit burnout, I couldn't tell you when I got out of it. I remember distinctly what started it, but I can never tell you when I came out of it because it takes time. There's no.
Yeah.
I like this game's ending. Well, first of all, when I got to the ending, I went, here it comes. Where's the twist? No twist. Because it's just the pedigree of this writer, one of the writers at least, Davey, who I'm more familiar with. Like that's his pedigree. And when it didn't come and it just ended for a split second, I was disappointed. And then I went, no, that's exactly what this game is, you dummy. Like, yeah, that's exactly the point. There is no twist. There is no answer. The answers are the lessons we learned and how we try and incorporate them. And I think it does that masterfully. And then I kind of sat there almost in shock watching the credits a little bit, like wistful, in shock, kind of like, oh, now we got to go back to like real life. Wait a minute. I don't know that I want to go yet.
I'm not going to get to talk to Boro tomorrow.
No. Yeah. And like, it was one of those moments where the game makes you sit with it. The credits scroll really slowly. The bench is there. Like you have to sit even in that last moment. You have to sit in the unknown and just kind of exist and accept what lays ahead.
It's something I did with Wanderstop. I sat through all the credits and was just, like I said, it's that man feeling as the credits are rolling. But this is something I have started doing. I've beaten a couple games since I finished Wanderstop, and I sat through the credits in both of those games and just kind of like sat with the feeling at the end of the game, whatever that feeling is. And I think that's really valuable I think the credits are there for a reason. You know, I think that especially with, you know, whatever type of art, if it has credits, we'll say, whatever it is, it's the same with like the beginning and ending of Twin Peaks episodes. Like I never skip that shit. I want to sit in that. And this game kind of inspired that in games. Instead of Matt jumping into Discord and posting that I checked a game off of my backlog list, as the credits are rolling, I'm going to sit with that feeling and take it in and reflect on the journey. Wanderstop just like really makes you do that by like it. You want to do that. It's not even a choice. You're just like, yeah, I am sitting here and just thinking about it. What's Alta going to be like after this? You know?
I hate it. I love it so much, right? Because we talk about the chance to be like, does she learn the lessons? Can we figure that out? Can I assume that she did better? Yes. But maybe not. We don't know.
Yeah.
But I felt I wanted the finality so bad. And the entire time waiting of like, the game told me that's not what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to just be like, be bored or be accepting of this and figure this out. But I'm like, but what if you just like, what if you told me though? What if you told me what happened? Because like along with do you want to stay? There's the do you think you'll keep fighting? And you can say yay, nay, or I'm not really sure. And mine was the I don't know. And I was just like, I'd say at this point the game's not giving me the genuine like my narrative is changing the outcome, right? But like maybe if I had picked the yes, I would get that one comic book splash art of like the swords on the ground and then like the lift of like, oh, she's back. Or like if it's the no, it's the she reaches for it and then does it, like leaves it there, right? Or like something that was just a little hint of like, here's what it is. But yeah, being able to just forever move forward, right? Assuming there's no like DLC expansion, something that would come out. I don't see that happening. But being able to move over forever, being like, this is how it ended and how do I feel it went? And however that may evolve and change. I'm like, no, I feel like she would have. Nah, probably not. She probably tried. Nah. So I'm going to enjoy watching that evolution of whatever happened to Alta evolve over time, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line of like, Wanderstop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a beautiful game. Really interesting how this, instead of being like a loud subversion of the type of game you thought it was going to be, like maybe the Stanley Parable was, like very in your face how it subverts your expectations. This game is just like one long subversion of what you think this story is going to be, what you think these mechanics are going to be in this type of game. So really glad that I played it. Really happy again that Ivy Road sent me a key for it is really, really appreciated. I would have played it anyway, but giving me the chance to really appreciate it. And I appreciate the chance, as always with this show, some of the most valuable parts of the experience of playing the games is then coming on here and talking about them. So Matt, Danny, thank you for taking a long time now to come on here and talk about Wanderstop. This is Tales from the Backlog, baby.
Yeah, it's not a real episode if we don't almost breach 3 hours minimum.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like, you just want to stall for the next 20? I mean,
some of us are old, Danny.
Yeah, I know. Fair enough. No, absolutely. I appreciate it, Dave. It's always great just being able to shoot the shit about whatever game it is. And one that felt like such an impactful one for this year, as early as we still are. Like, this is a fun conversation to have. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. I always want to come on your show. I'm basically pitching games for me to come on and talk about on your show like every other week. So whenever I actually get to do it, it's always a blast. And I think this is an incredible game. It's definitely high on my list. I mean, there are also a lot of cool games coming out in the next 3 to 6 months. So who knows what that looks like, but it's definitely a game I'll think about a lot. I think about the Beginner's Guide at least once a week, right? It just kind of pops into my head like, oh yeah. And like, this is another one of those games that I'm just going to every so often kind of think on and be like, oh yeah, that was. And like every time I've shared a screenshot, everyone's like, wow, that game is really pretty. I was like, yeah, I know.
It is. You should play it.
So always a pleasure to come on the show and talk about stuff. Danny's fine, I guess. I don't really,
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, he's all right.
Matt and I just keep getting drug and shit together,
I know, it's true. We did a different podcast, the two of us too. That's coming out in this month also, actually.
Next week, I think.
A lot of this combination. Yeah, it is interesting. Just a final thought here. When thinking about like game of the year type stuff, if this is something you value, there's just not a whole lot of games that make you look inward the way that Wanderstop does.
Yeah.
There's a lot of games that can tell very affecting stories or have insanely fun gameplay and amazing music and stuff like that. But the ones I think, like you said, Matt, like the ones like this or the Beginner's Guide or like 1,000 Times Resist or anything that really truly makes you look inward, that those are the ones that stick with you. At least that's what sticks with me. So yeah, this is going to be a real contender, and it's going to be a game that I'll never shut up about, especially to people like us. I think that there's a lot of value there. So again, thank you both for coming on here. I will give the call at the very end. If anyone's still here with us, please check out the things that Matt and Danny do. Check out Fun and Games, check out Reignite, check out Playlog Podcast, check out Danny on Twitch and on YouTube. Follow everyone on socials. All those links are down in the show notes. You are my hero if you're here at the end. And the last thing to say is to tune in next week for the next game to come out of the backlog.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun, whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, aka Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming. Hey,
Oh, hey, Jeff.
what's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.